Chapter 4275. After the ship had sailed some distance away from the ferry, Arbor realized that the ship Seven Flowers was on was steadily sailing in front of them, braving the wind and waves with great momentum. The sound of a guqin and singing came from afar. It seemed that Seven Flowers and the others were in the mood to play the guqin on the ship. I don't know why, but whenever I hear the guqin music I get goosebumps. Long Huan, who was standing in front of the deck against the wind, couldn't help but shiver and reach out to rub his arms. After being attacked by the zither-playing corpse puppet twice in a row, Long Huan's heart was traumatized. Arbor didn't feel much. He just turned to Long Huan and said, "Don't let your guard down for the next few days. If that cultured corpse puppet has the guts to come once or twice, it can come a third or fourth time until the sneak attack is complete. That corpse puppet is so persistent. What exactly is it after?" Arbor couldn't help but sneer. "Of course it's because someone has their eye on me." "Eye on you?" Long Shengyun couldn't help but interrupt. "Who has their eye on you?" Arbor couldn't be bothered with her at first, but the siblings were looking at him strangely. "Isn't it normal to have their eye on Jojo?" Mo Lien said dryly. "I thought that young Master Long had thoroughly investigated Xiao Qiao's matters, including the irreversible mortal enmity between us and Tianyun. You mean to say that the zither-playing corpse puppet was actually targeting Qiao Mu?" Long Shengyun immediately revealed her discontent. "Then why did it attack them? You think that corpse puppet is smart enough to distinguish our relationship?" Mu Xingchen sneered. "You're traveling with us. In the corpse puppet's eyes, you're all its enemies." But Long Shengyun couldn't help but be angry. That lousy corpse puppet had been targeting the Wangchuan Dragon Clan since the beginning, making her think that these people were the Wangchuan Dragon Clan's enemies. After all this time, it turned out that they were here to attack the little crown princess. Weren't they too stupid to know who they were attacking? Long Shengyun took a deep breath. "Tianyun will still send people?" Arbor turned around and left with an innocent look on his face. "How would I know? Miss He, you should know now, right? Even if you can summon half of the corpse fish in the river, with just one special class corpse puppet, you might not be able to defeat that little crown princess." Mu Rochuan stood by the window and gazed at the rolling river in the distance. She said in a deep voice, "Tonight we'll be entering the sea." Hier's expression turned a little ugly. "Eldest miss, do you have any better way to deal with this matter? That special-grade corpse puppet can only summon its subordinates within a radius of 500 miles. Any further, and its voice won't have any effect on others." Mu Rochuan's voice was indifferent as she said, "You've already let him out twice, but he didn't succeed even once." Hier's expression turned even uglier. "Then what do you think we should do? None of Mother's methods will work." Mu Rochuan shook her head. "Based on my understanding of her, she's definitely on guard against you all right now. Once you let 16 go, he'll definitely be captured by her. 16 won't be able to survive. You and I, all of us, won't be able to survive." Hier couldn't help but be furious. "Eldest miss, you've said so much. Are you trying to retreat?" Mu Rochuan sighed softly. Chapter 4276. You're too impatient. Mu Rochuan put down the letter in her hand. She had read this letter from her mother so many times that she could already recite it backwards. She had studied all of her mother's plans once, but the results were very low. Especially if they attacked at sea, it was simply courting death. With the young crown prince consort's vigilance, you want to succeed in a sneak attack on this vast land with no cover on the sea? It was probably wishful thinking. "I've sorted out my mother's plans. You should all stop for a while. When we reach the river of forgetfulness, we'll think of a way to attack." "Eldest Mississippi, Miss He, if you think my method is inappropriate, we can work separately." He frowned and glanced at Mu Rochuan. Her gaze fell on the left side of her face. That ugly centipede scar was very conspicuous. No girl who loved beauty could stand it. However, Mu Rochuan endured it. She had never even asked the hall master for a beautifying pill. He believed that as long as Mu Rochuan was willing to ask, the hall master would not be stingy with giving it to her. What was the reason that made the eldest miss of the Mu family not even care about her appearance now? Was there anything else she cared about? Hier's frown deepened. If a person did not have any weaknesses, then it was really difficult to control them, because the uncertain factors were too high. He took a deep look at Mu Rochuan, then turned and walked out. 3 days later, Long Huan stood on the deck and looked at a dilapidated small fishing village in the distance. From where they were, they could see many stiff-looking things walking around on the beach by the sea. How did this place become like this? Long Shangyun clenched her fists, and a trace of disdain appeared on her face. It spread so quickly. Long Huan sighed and looked at the things walking and stopping on the beach. He shook his head and said, "If it continues like this, it will spread to the vicinity of the River of Forgetfulness one day. If you continue to let it go, won't it be a matter of time before it spreads?" Mu Xingchen could not help but sneer. Arbor sat at the table and drank tea. He was too lazy to even bat an eyelid. In the past 3 days, the ship's journey had been quite stable. Only yesterday evening, they had encountered a large corpse shark, which had been taken care of by the joint efforts of everyone. Nothing else had happened. Some of the creatures in the sea had already mutated. Big Brother was right. If they regularly sent people out to sea to clean up the mutant fish, the situation could be controlled to a certain extent. Unlike now, where everyone in that village had mutated because they had eaten something that mutated. You make it sound easy, but how much manpower and resources would it take to truly control it? Long Shangyun couldn't help but angrily rebuke Mu Xingchen. Mu Xingchen couldn't help but roll his eyes. So this is the reason why you're not doing anything? These villages that live by the sea will probably mutate like this village soon. Long Shangyun raised her chin proudly. Even if all these foolish fishermen die, the River of Forgetfulness will still stand. Where we live, you humans on the shore can't even imagine it. You can't even come into contact with it. Mu Xingchen raised his eyebrows noncommittally and did not continue arguing with her. After traveling for another half a day, 3 beautiful islands appeared before everyone's eyes. Let's continue at night. Chapter 4277. There were many ships queuing up to enter the port. Long Huan's ship was behind a large fleet of ships. Looking at the situation, it would take at least an hour for them to enter the port. After about 15 minutes, Long Huan turned to look in Mu Xingchen's direction. Is cousin still resting? It's about time. Let her wake up. For the past few days, Long Huan knew the little girl's routine. After lunch, it was time to sleep. She would dawdle for several hours, and would only leave the cabin in the evening to meet people. How would Long Huan know that every time after lunch, the little girl would drag her husband back to Paradise Planet to play? Who would be happy to be on this ship day and night? Of course, it would be more comfortable to rest in the star domain and refine talismans and pills. Mu Xingchen glanced at Long Huan and said lightly, "Don't worry. Jojo will come out in a while." Long Shangyun snorted. Some people always dawdle out in the evening. We're about to reach the port, but no one will stay here to wait. Before Long Shangyun could say the word her voice trailed off. Her gaze turned to the railing on the second floor. A slender, moon-white figure slowly appeared by the side of the railing. Her soft hair was tied up into a bun that fell loosely to her waist. Her eyes were cold and her gaze was like snow. The little girl was dressed in a white robe with wide sleeves. She stood there coldly, as if there was only this patch of white in the world. It was eye-catching. Long Huan stared blankly until Long Shangyun tugged at his sleeve. Only then did he regain his senses. Arbor's figure had already disappeared from the railing on the second floor. Not long after, Long Huan noticed Prince Emo holding her hand. They walked down to the deck together. People from alluring female kingdom are more straightforward. Long Huan considered his words and glanced at Feng Chongqing and the others. Cover yourselves with the black cloth I gave you earlier. Arbor said lightly, no need. It's not like they can't be seen. How can he think of covering their faces? Long Huan, why doesn't this person listen to advice? Cousin, I'm just thinking for you. Long Yun coughed lightly and said with a serious face, take them away from the ship. Let me tell you, I don't think you'll be able to walk out of this pier. I'm not trying to scare you. With a serious expression, Long Huan looked at the little stoic and advised earnestly, how about you just install talismans on them? Feng Zhangqing. Why are we being despised like this? The little stoic glanced at him. Why aren't you blindfolding yourself? Long Huan quickly pulled out a piece of black cloth from under his collar and covered his mouth from his nose to his mouth. The corner of Mu Xingqian's mouth twitched speechlessly. The little stoic looked at him, and the corners of her lips faintly curled up into a faintly discernible smile. Long Xi's appearance was extremely like a retard. Long Huan was taken aback, and his heart was touched. He had been traveling with this cousin of his for so many days, but he had never seen her smile from beginning to end. She would either roll her eyes at him, or be expressionless most of the time. Today's faint smile was simply indescribable. It made people unable to take their eyes off her. It was as if the sun, moon, and stars were all blooming at the same time. Just now, the mountains and rivers in front of him had a strange feeling that they were brightening. Suddenly, Emolien's expressionless handsome face appeared in his line of sight, blocking the little girl's slender figure. Have you prepared the customs clearance documents? Chapter 4278. Long Qian hastily nodded. Everything has been prepared. I'll go handle the procedures later. Everyone don't run around for now. The streets are more crowded before and after devastating female kingdom's queen's birthday. It's best if we don't get separated from the crowd. Later, we'll go to the island to find a good inn together. Long Qian was like an old father, as he endlessly instructed everyone. That's right, you guys should also cover yourselves. Long Qian thought of something and took out 2 pieces of black cloth from his inner world, distributing them to the crown prince and Mu Xingqian. Hurry and cover yourselves. If you don't want to cause trouble for cousin, then listen to me. No need to cover ourselves. Arbor waved her small hand and said coldly with a wooden expression, there's nothing shameful about it. Don't tell me there's someone who dares to steal my husband and big brother in broad daylight? Long Shangyun rolled her eyes. Isn't it obvious? Do you think other people won't steal your man, just because you look stoic? Let me tell you, I reckon that within a second after you disembark, the people around you, they, will all be robbed. Arbor was instantly enraged. Who dares to rob? I think they're tired of living. Besides, her Feng clan's children were all extraordinarily skilled. It was simply baffling who could steal them. Hey, you better believe me. Have you heard that 2 fists are no match for 4 palms? You're standing on devastating female kingdom's territory, right now, and already out of your divine province's territory. What can you be so smug about? Do you think a bunch of people will pop out to help you fight if you yell? Where are the crown princess's personal guards? The little stoic glared at Long Shangyun, and the latter glared back at her, not to be outdone. All right. Long Qian hastily saved the situation to prevent his younger sister from getting beaten again. Actually, Shangyun is also speaking the truth. Cousin, you see, Sir Jojo waved her small hand. There's no need for the people around me to hide their identities. There's no need for that. Long Shangyun glared at her fiercely and rolled her eyes fiercely. She also ridiculed in her mind. Obstinate and self-opinionated. Doesn't listen to other people's advice. Self-righteous. Talking to herself. He really wanted to beat up this stoic face in front of him. The sight of this stoic little face made his mood extremely uncomfortable. His rage point soared when Long Shi saw that the 2 of them were about to fight again. He quickly stood between them and raised his hand to block them. He laughed dryly and said, All right. Stop arguing. Then since cousin doesn't think there's a problem, then we won't wear the black cloth. It's just that everyone should try their best to stay together and not get separated. Why did Long Shi feel so tired? Previously, when he suggested to travel to the devastating beauty country, was his suggestion wrong? Long Huan covered his face with the black cloth, revealing only his eyes. After the ship docked, he was the first to disembark and greet the receptionist. The female official looked to be in her 30s and was dressed in a black military uniform. When she saw Feng Zhangqing and the others, her eyes lit up and her expression immediately warmed up. Are you all here to participate in the Queen's birthday celebration? When this female official saw Prince Emo next to Arbor, her eyes immediately became glued to him, and she smiled so widely that her chubby cheeks trembled. With everyone's looks, ha. It shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the top 10. Long Shi hastily handed over the customs clearance document. We're only here to visit the Queen's birthday celebration, not to participate in the competition. Chapter 4279. The female official took the document and stamped it, revealing a regretful expression. Is that so? Her gaze slid reluctantly over Mo Lian, Feng Chongqing and the others. That's really too much of a pity. Long Huan trembled slightly. He took the customs clearance document from the female official and chuckled awkwardly. No, it's not a pity. Sir, please move aside. We're going to disembark. Oh. The female official led the others off the ship. Only then did Long Huan lead his clansmen, Feng Chongqing, Mo Lian, and the others off the ship and onto the shore. A bustling crowd was in front of them. Long Huan's face was covered in black cloth, so he didn't attract much attention. However, Mo Lian, Feng Chongqing, and Mu Xingqian had just stepped onto the shore when they were met with a wave of chatter. The onlooking women couldn't even walk now. They all squeezed to the front, their eyes wide as saucers as they stared at Mo Lian and the others. Long Shangyun, who was standing to the side and watching the show, couldn't help but frown when she saw his intoxicated appearance. She glared angrily in Arbor's direction, a trace of sullenness in her eyes. I already told them to cover their faces. Look at them now. They can't even walk anymore. Arbor. A familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind the crowd. Arbor looked in the direction of the voice and saw the crowd being pushed to the sides. A young woman walked out from the center. She was wearing a thin red muslin dress and a silk cloak. The woman was barefooted, and 2 jingling bells hung from her ankles. She was slowly walking toward her. A pair of clear eyes stared straight at her, her gaze never leaving her. I didn't expect to meet you here. The woman's gaze lightly swept over her. Crown Princess, you're busy. Don't tell me you don't remember me? Looking at the expressionless face in front of her, the woman curled her lips slightly. The holy virgin of the demonic cult, Sikong Fuling. Arbor naturally did not have such a bad memory as Sikong Fuling had described. Moreover, she and this Sikong Fuling could be considered to have met many times. Of course, it was impossible for her to not remember this person. Sikong Fuling smiled as she raised her hand to tidy up a strand of hair at her temples. She said with a gratified expression, "Fortunately, I don't have to introduce myself anymore." Saintess. Meng Meiyu worriedly stepped forward. She really wanted to remind this holy maiden that the little stoic in front of her really wasn't an easy person to get along with. Yet unexpectedly, Sikong Fuling suddenly summoned a long sword and stabbed it in the little stoic's direction without any explanation. Wow! The crowd let out a long exclamation. The eyes of devastating female kingdom's onlookers lit up as they looked at Sikong Fuling, who had suddenly made a move to find fault. One of them couldn't help but laugh out loud. Haha! I didn't expect it to be so lively when we just arrived at the port. Excuse me, may I ask what they are doing? Why did you start fighting as soon as you met? You really are ignorant and inexperienced. In our devastating female kingdom, you can only draw your sword if you want to steal her man. Another person said eagerly. I'll also go and try later. What happened? Mu Xingqian and Prince Mo looked at each other in dismay, and black lines immediately appeared on their foreheads. This young lady can only accept the challenge, of course. I see. But speaking of which, since someone is challenging her, wouldn't she be a coward if she didn't accept the challenge? Chapter 4280. The moment Xiao Mu turned sideways to evade the sword cry, Sikong Fuling's second strike, which was accompanied by a sonic boom, reached her again. Arbor lowered her waist and leaned back. Her longsword flitted over her head, lifting a strand of hair from her temples. Her unhindered sword intent scattered in all directions, and half a strand of black hair drifted down the sword in Sikong Fuling's hand. Arbor's eyes abruptly suffused with chilliness. With a hum, she summoned clap of thunder from her conscience, and she held her sword horizontally to block Sikong Fuling's third slash. Arbor's voice seemed to emanate from the depths of hell, and was endlessly chilling. Sikong Fuling, you're courting death. After we parted in the mystic beast forest, you saved my life, and I protected you for a night. Where even now? Arbor spun around to avoid Sikong Fulling's rippling sword energy. She held Clap of Thunder in her hand and blocked the attack. She said coldly, "When did I save your life? You naturally don't remember. How much do you remember from the Mystic Beast Forest? At that time, you lost all your senses, emotions and desires. You don't have any memories." "What?" Mu Xingqian, Feng Changqing, and the others were startled. "What do you mean lost all my senses? Why didn't they know about this?" The Crown Prince knitted his brows as he looked at Sikong Fulling, who suddenly launched an attack. He knew that something had happened to the little fellow in the Mystic Beast Forest, but the little one had always kept the specifics a secret from him. Seeing that she was unwilling to speak, he naturally didn't pursue the matter. In any case, she was already staying by his side, so the past was in the past. However, he didn't expect that his wifey would cross paths with the demonic sex saint in the Mystic Beast Forest. Nonsense. As usual, the little stoic refused to admit it. She stared icily at Sikong Fulling with a frosty expression. "Nonsense. Do you still remember how my big brother saved you? Of course you don't remember anything. You were under some kind of curse back then, right? That's why you lost all your senses. When I met you in the Mystic Beast Forest, you were blind and couldn't see anything. You were just like a massacre. Absurd. All of this is just your nonsense. When have I ever been blind?" A green vine drilled out of Arbor's wrist and whipped toward Sikong Fulling without hesitation. The onlookers couldn't help but gasp. However, Sikong Fulling leaped up and reached out to grab one end of her vine whip. The barbed dark hooks formed by the power of the holy wood pierced into her fair palm as quickly as they could. Drops of blood fell to the ground along with the vine whip. The surroundings were completely silent. "Do you dare to come with me to meet him?" Sikong Fulling looked at her coldly and asked. Arbor moved his lips and said with a stoic face, "Let go. Since you have no interest in him, why did you flirt with him? Do you know that you've harmed him?" Arbor was enraged as he glared at Sikong Fulling in bewilderment. "I'll tell you one more time. I have nothing to do with your big brother. Hey miss, you're in the wrong here." A slender and quick-witted figure suddenly darted out of the crowd and bounced toward Arbor and Sikong Fulling. Her round face was solemn and dignified. When she reached Arbor, she reprimanded her. "Since you flirted with someone else's big brother, you have to take responsibility, right? As women, we have to take responsibility for our actions. We mustn't flirt and deny it. How are we any different from those heartless and fickle people?" Chapter 4281. Arbor couldn't help but be breathless. Where did this little lady jump out from? She looked young and was dressed in a wealthy manner, but the words that came out of her mouth were simply baffling to the extreme. What did she mean by she was heartless and fickle, flirting and refusing to admit it? Who did she flirt with? She didn't flirt with anyone, all right. What the hell was flirting? Who could explain it to her? Mu Xingqian looked at the chaotic situation in front of him and couldn't help but facepalm. He took a few steps forward and whispered, "This Miss Sikong, your hand is injured. Can you let go of it first?" Sikong Fulling glanced at him coldly. She tightly gripped the end of Arbor's vine whip and asked word by word, "Arbor, do you dare to enter my dream and try?" Arbor was startled, and he stared at her indifferently. A pitch-black flute was slowly summoned from Sikong Fulling's conscious. It floated horizontally in the air and slowly descended. Arbor's heart tightened slightly as he looked at this nightmare demonic flute. After a while, he merely gazed at that flute with an icy and merciless gaze. She recognized this frightening flute. The instant this nightmare demonic flute was blown, it would make her dream of bad people, bad things, and bad memories. For example, young Master Omega Kotoku. "Arbor, as long as you enter my dream and take a look, you'll definitely know what happened between you and my eldest brother." The onlookers held their breaths in anticipation, and their gazes fixated on the little stoic. Emo Lien suddenly flashed to his wife's side and supported her waist with one hand. She looked coldly at Sikong Fulling and said, "Don't force her anymore. She naturally won't enter her dream, because nothing happened between her and Ding Ting Ding." Sikong Fulling scoffed. "Is that so?" "Of course." Emo Lien glanced at Sikong Fulling with an icy expression. Sikong Fulling tightly gripped that vine whip. Everyone saw the drop of blood in her hand climb up the vine bit by bit, the color of blood rippling. The vine whip in Arbor's hand was stretched taut, just like her heartstrings. It was stretched perfectly straight and taut, as if it would explode at any moment. Do you know Arbor? You've done him in. I've never seen him so miserable. He was used to being playful and unrestrained. But towards you, there has never been the slightest bit of pretense or false feelings. Sikong Fuling's eyes reddened as she fought back the tears that were about to fall. Recalling what she saw yesterday, her hand once again gripped the vine whip tightly, as if by doing so, she could grab hold of Arbor and bring her back to see that person. Let go. Arbor flew into a rage and pulled back the vine whip in her hand. The power of the holy wood turned into fragments of starlight and gathered in her hand. Miss, that's not right. The young lady who had scolded her earlier hurriedly said. How can you treat his big brother like this? Aya, you can't forget the old just because you have a new person. What and what? Arbor glared angrily at the little girl who was spouting nonsense. Student Emolienne also had black lines on her forehead and couldn't help but look up to glare at the young lady whose brain had gone haywire. Inexplicably, with just 3 sentences from this young lady, her proper husband had been reduced to a new lover. That young lady didn't care at all about other people's glares, as she skipped over to Sikong Fuling's side and held up her hand. Aya, you're so badly injured. Miss, I have medicine here. Apply it first. Sikong Fuling pulled back her hand and remained silent. The young lady ignored her and pulled Sikong Fuling to apply medicine to stop the bleeding. Chapter 4282. I'm called Qing Xuexue, and you're called Sikong Fuling, right? Your injury is quite serious. If you don't apply medicine properly to remove the scars, you won't be able to see your hand in the future. That little girl was a naturally sociable fellow. She nagged incessantly as she applied medicine for Sikong Fuling. Sikong Fuling merely gazed wordlessly at the little stoic across from her. Qing Xuexue's gaze also looked in the young crown prince consort's direction. With a bitter expression, she hesitated for a long time before she spoke with a bit of joy. This stoic young lady, you're truly very worrisome. As women, how can we be so heartless and callous towards beautiful and delicate men? This isn't right. The members of the Feng tribe looked at this little girl, who was about the same age as Arbor, as if they were looking at a weirdo. The corner of Mu Xingchen's mouth twitched slightly, and he selectively ignored the words beautiful and delicate man that Qing Xuexue mentioned. Could it be that this devastating womanland, from the queen to her subjects, were all weirdos like this? Arbor ignored Qing Xuexue from beginning to end, making the girl faintly feel a sense of defeat. Arbor, you don't dare to enter the dream, so I naturally can't force you. Sikong Fuling looked at her and said indifferently, but when you were training in the Mystic Beast Forest that day, you lost all your senses and your memories. However, Qingwan has always been by your side, so he's aware of many things. You can summon him out and ask him. Arbor gazed at Sikong Fuling with extremely cold eyes, her fingers tightly gripping the thunderclap sword's hilt. She was trying her best to suppress the churning emotions in her heart, and she was about to suppress them to the limit. You came to see me today for this matter? In truth, Sikong Fuling wanted to find her last time in Phoenix Grove, but unfortunately she didn't encounter Arbor at all due to a freak combination of factors. Yes. Sikong Fuling nodded. If you're willing to come with me, before she could finish speaking. What answered her was the little stoic's merciless slash of her sword. The vast and mighty sword aura bore down on Sikong Fuling. Everyone present jumped in fright. Many of the spectators of devastating womankind retreated like the tide. She looked on helplessly as the little stoic's sword fell, splitting open a foot-wide fissure in front of Sikong Fuling. Saintess! More than a dozen devil cult disciples rushed forward to support Sikong Fuling's retreating body. They all looked up in the direction of Arbor. Let's go. Arbor glanced at them coldly and reached out to tug at Emolien's sleeve. Without another word, he turned around and left with the group behind him. Hey, Auntie, who is this lady? Qing Xuexue chased after them for a few steps and then stopped. She looked regretfully at the people of Arbor and left without looking back. Sigh, is there no more fun to watch so soon? She turned to look in Sikong Fuling's direction and rolled her eyes. Just as she was about to walk toward Sikong Fuling, two travel-worn and sweaty women suddenly squeezed out from the crowd. The two of them hurriedly grabbed her hands and dragged her away. "Your Highness, why are you here again? Quickly return, something happened in the estate." "What's the fuss about?" Qing Shueshua muttered quietly and obediently left with the two female officers. Meng Meiyu breathed a sigh of relief and walked to Sikong Fuling's side. She said sullenly, "You were truly too impetuous just now." "What do you know?" Sikong Fuling swept her a glance with an indifferent expression. "She can treat eldest brother's illness." Meng Meiyu was startled and then said, "But the cult master is far away in the river of forgetfulness right now." Chapter 4283. Where do you think she's going this time? Sikong Fuling looked certain. "She's heading for the river of forgetfulness." Meng Meiyu hesitated for a moment before saying gravely, "Based on my understanding of her, I'm afraid no one can force her to do something she's unwilling to do. You also saw her attitude just now. She did her best to distance herself from them, and didn't look like she would be enthusiastic about helping them." Sikong Fuling narrowed her eyes. "That's why it's best if she owes us a favor." She understood this stoic face too well. As long as it was a debt of gratitude, the little stoic would definitely repay it. Because she disliked owing people favors the most, and didn't give others the chance to owe her a favor. The most classic example was that she would usually settle the debt with the person and the goods. Meng Meiyu couldn't resist snickering. "That girl is very crafty. How do you want her to owe you a favor? Since Arbor is going to the river of forgetfulness, why did she come here midway?" Sikong Fuling turned to look at Meng Meiyu. "She doesn't visit a temple without a cause." "You mean she didn't come to attend the Queen's birthday celebration?" Meng Meiyu raised her brows, her brain working quickly. "She came to devastating Beauty Kingdom to handle some matters?" Sikong Fuling nodded. "Go investigate. I want to know what she came here for." The cabin door was suddenly pulled open by someone. Mu Roxian's eyes coldly looked towards the door, only to see a thin young man with a delicate and pretty face walking in with large strides along with two lackeys. "You're the daughter of that old hag from Flying Paradise?" The newcomer sized her up and spoke with a disdainful attitude. "You're just a team of old, weak, sick, and disabled people. Yet you're still yearning to capture that stoic face alive? You're rather gutsy. I heard that Flying Paradise woman is a good-for-nothing with zero cultivation, and relied on scheming and her body to get to her position." That young man sat down boldly in front of her and sized Mu Roxuan up maliciously. "What about you? You're her daughter, ha? But your face is crippled. So you probably don't have the capital to rely on your body to get to her position, right?" Mu Roxuan flung out a mystic talisman. The difference between charms and talismans was that high-level talismans required profound energy to activate, while charms didn't have this restriction. Otherwise, Mu Roxuan wouldn't be able to do anything. Now that she was concentrating on the study of talisman spells, she had made great progress. Mother probably saw her talent in charms, so she kept her by her side to work for her. Otherwise, why would Flying Paradise keep a trash who had yet to unlock her special ability? Thinking of this, Mu Roxuan couldn't help but sneer at herself. The young man frowned and dodged, but one of his followers was not so lucky. He was hit by the Xianin charm and fell to the ground with a howl. The baleful yin qi wrapped around his neck, and in just a moment, that layer of black qi strangled him to death. The other follower widened his eyes in horror and took a few steps back. The young man laughed heartily as he sat there and clapped his hands. "Impressive, impressive. I've underestimated you. Miss Mu, right? I heard that you and that facial paralysis are sisters?" Hidden Moon Hall's Vice Hall Master Buyi. Mu Roxuan stared at the moon mark on his sleeve and coldly said, "What are you doing here?" "Of course I'm here to make a deal with you, Miss Mu." Buyi chuckled. "I can help you capture that little facial paralysis." Mu Roxuan couldn't help but sneer. Conditions? She wasn't naive enough to believe that the Hidden Moon Hall's Vice Hall Master came here to help her. Chapter 4284. A satisfied smile appeared on Buye's gloomy face. "Miss Mu is indeed a smart person." He grinned. revealing a mouthful of white teeth. My request is very simple. After you catch her, give her to me for 3 days. I'll return her to you after 3 days. Don't worry, I won't kill her. Heh. Mu Rochuan sneered. Your hidden moon hall is really filthy. What would happen if a beautiful little girl was handed over to a pervert for 3 days? Mu Rochuan didn't even need to think to know. Bu Yi wasn't angry. He just raised his eyebrows and asked gloomily. Do you agree? Mu Rochuan shook her head. I refuse. She had no interest in cooperating with a pervert. What would happen if she asked a tiger for its skin? She knew without thinking. Bu Ye's expression suddenly changed. He approached Mu Rochuan and grabbed her neck. You dare to refuse me? He and Hong Chong heard the voice and their expressions changed. Deputy Hall Master Bu Yi. Please stop. Bu Yi glanced at them and said coldly. Since you know my identity, you still dare to be so rude? He and Hong Chong cupped their hands in salute. He said with a dark face. Deputy Hall Master, we can accept your proposal. Please let go of the eldest miss first. Ha ha ha, where did the eldest miss come from? Bu Yi sneered with a gloomy face and threw Mu Rochuan away. Mu Rochuan was hit by a force, and her whole body fell heavily to the side of the bed. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Mu Rochuan hit the middle of the bed. The impact was so great that the bed was smashed into 2 halves. She fell between the 2 pieces of broken wood, and struggled for a long time, but couldn't get away. Heh! Bu Yi stood up straight with a sneer and glanced at Mu Rochuan. Without strength, how can you work for our Tianyun? Talismans and curses? In fact, before you even used the talisman, you were already crushed to death like an ant. Mu Rochuan's expression was calm and indifferent. She struggled to sit up. Remember to clean up a good cabin for me. The man laughed wantonly and left. Young Mississippi. Hong Chong quickly walked forward and wanted to help Mu Rochuan up, but she raised her hand slightly to stop him. Mu Rochuan's expression was calm as she slowly stood up and reached out to support herself against the wall behind her. Today's incident was only the most direct way for her to face a very humiliating thing. She no longer had any cultivation or spiritual power. Even a mere mystic cultivator might be able to knock her to the ground with one punch, let alone a second-level godmaster like Vice Hall Master Bai. Mu Rochuan let out a long sigh and closed her eyes. Young Mississippi, Here walked up and said disapprovingly, Didn't Vice Hall Master you propose cooperation just now? Why didn't you agree to it immediately? What are you hesitating for? Could it be that you've really developed sisterly feelings for that little stoic? I just don't want to disrupt Mother's original plan, Mu Rochuan said calmly. I studied Mother's letter from beginning to end several times, she said indifferently. I discovered that the methods written in the letter aren't important. The most important thing is that we're merely the bait she threw out. Here was a bit puzzled and asked with raised brows. What do you mean? Chapter 4285. Mu Rochuan's expression was normal, and her emotions didn't fluctuate in the slightest. She only said in an extremely serene tone, Mother must have sent someone else to secretly capture Arbor. We're merely her chess pieces on the surface. No wonder she felt that her mother's actions this time were a bit strange. Mother had always been steady, crafty, and ruthless. She had fought with the little stoic many times, so there was no way she didn't know that the little stoic was extremely strange. Her subordinates like Hong Chong and Here simply couldn't truly fight the little stoic. To put it bluntly, they were people her mother placed on the surface to lure the enemy. Trump cards were often hidden in the deepest parts. Eldest Miss means that the Hall Master has other arrangements? Here was truly a bit surprised. As the Hall Master's trusted aide, she had never heard the Hall Master mention this matter. Eldest Miss merely studied the Hall Master's letter, yet she managed to figure out so many things? It could be seen that this Miss's brain was actually still okay. It was just that she had been blinded by jealousy in the past, which was why she had done many foolish things. Now that she had quieted down and was using a clear head to analyze the situation and view the problem from a new perspective, she was able to see things more thoroughly than them, the Hall Master's trusted aides. Upon hearing Mu Rochuan's analysis, Hong Chong also nodded to express that this was extremely likely the case. Here couldn't help but frown and say, There's no other way now. This Vice Hall Master Bai is extremely skilled, and we're not his match. Besides, with his status, no one here can stop him if he wants to stay. Eldest miss, let's cooperate with him for the time being. I'll send a message to the Hall Master tonight, and ask her what we should do next. Mu Rochuan nodded with an apathetic expression, and remained silent. On the other side, Bai boldly ordered his men to bring him to a gorgeous cabin, and took over the ship as the Hidden Moon Hall's Vice Hall Master. Vice Hall Master, from the way I see it, although that eldest young miss is temporarily intimidated by Vice Hall Master, she doesn't seem to have much reverence for you. This retainer was evidently frightened by the mystic talismans that Mu Rochuan had played with so well just now. As soon as he returned to the cabin, he hastily instigated Bai's expression was gloomy as he played with an ivory dagger in his hand, and gently caressed the 2 broken fingers on his left hand. It had been a long time since they parted at the Saint Auspicious battle arena. Bouye's face looked very delicate and pretty, but there were dark clouds between his brows. I wonder how you've been doing lately with your stoic face, he coldly muttered as his right hand continuously rubbed the 2 broken fingers on his left hand back and forth. That day, after leaving the battle arena, the Crown Prince immediately gave the order to kill him. Like a stray dog, he was chased all the way out of the Saint Auspicious arena. He had lost half his life and 2 fingers. Just when he thought that he was about to die, someone finally came to his rescue, and he managed to keep his life at least a little. How should he settle this debt with that damn little stoic? Bouye glanced at his lackey and scolded. Useless thing, you can't even handle a woman with no cultivation. Don't think that he didn't see it just now. Under the attack of the Xianin talisman, this retainer was so scared that his legs trembled. If you dare to be such a coward again, be careful of the head on your neck. The lackey was startled. His body trembled slightly as he nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes. Chapter 4286. After leaving the bustling docks, the little crown princess covered her head and walked forward without saying a word. Mo Lian intentionally teased her, but he also knew that she might not be in a good mood at the moment. At a time like this, if she wanted to have some peace and quiet by herself, he naturally had to restrain his urge to lift his arms and hug her, giving her some peace and quiet. It was unknown what Arbor was thinking, but he lowered his head and covered his head as he walked briskly. His pace became faster and faster, and he suddenly sprinted forward. Jojo! Mu Xingchen jumped in fright, and hastily sped up to catch up. Mo Lian turned to glance at him. The sapling probably sensed it. Let's quickly follow. The group of people followed the little stoic's rapidly advancing figure, and lined up in a row, their speed also increasing by quite a bit. The little stoic suddenly leaped onto a rooftop, and everyone immediately did the same thing. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. They all jumped up and half-crouched down after her. The little mushroom expressionlessly looked back, and saw her husband shooting her an aggrieved look with his watery phoenix eyes. Jojo is ignoring me. Arbor reflexively reached out, and stroked his husband's head to comfort him. Everyone's mouths twitched as they speechlessly looked at the two's odd interaction. Stroking a dog's head, or something seemed to be a certain Jojo's signature gesture. Shoo! The little stoic extended a finger, and made a shushing gesture. Everyone crouched on the rooftop, and looked inside. They saw that the courtyard was currently in an uproar. A 5 to 6-year-old child was madly running around the courtyard with his butt bare. A lush green blade of grass grew on his small head, and a pink pouch was wrapped around his body. He bounced around, and when he saw someone coming to catch him, he would backhand them, and give them a big slap. This child was freakishly strong, and several adult servants were not his match. They could only whimper in pain from his violent beatings. Xiao Chao Xiao Chao. Qing Shueshua dashed in from outside, and saw this crazy child at a glance. She hastily pacified him. Xiao Chao, calm down, Xiao Chao. The child called Xiao Chao punched her in the face, and almost sent her flying. Your Highness! 2 female officials leaped forward one after the other, and raised their hands to support her. Qing Shueshua had a bitter expression on her face, as she scrambled over, and held the child down. She hugged him and cried out pitifully, Xiao Chao, mother is here. Look at your mother. Ouch, 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 ouch. Mother's hand is about to be broken by you. Your Highness. The entire courtyard was in chaos. Quite a few bodyguards rushed in from outside, their eyes red as they tried to save their princess. However, Qing Shueshue raised her hand and called out to them in a low voice, "Don't come over." Little doll kicked Qing Shueshue to the ground. Qing Shueshue rolled on the ground pathetically. When she turned around, she saw that the baby's eyes were filled with irritation. He was jumping up and down, roaring angrily. Seed fragment? Emolian looked back at Xiao Mu inquiringly. What was going on? She had never seen a seed fragment so manic. As if it was suffering from bipolar disorder. Arbor nodded and tugged at his finger, indicating for them to stay up there. He then flashed and floated to Qing Shueshue. Qing Shueshue was currently holding her waist and crying out. When she looked up and saw the little stoic's expressionless face, she was instantly stunned. Chapter 4287. Hey, you, aren't you there? Before he could say the words stoic young lady, a green vine shot out from the little stoic's palm and darted towards the toddler. The green vine coiled a few times and tied up the irritable toddler in a few minutes. The green vine coiled around his hands and feet several times and firmly tied him up. The toddler fell to the ground with a bang, but his black beady eyes were wide open as he stared straight at Arbor. His hands and feet were tied up, and he was lying on his side on the ground, but he still refused to give up and moved his hands and feet. His watery eyes looked pitifully at Arbor. Ah! The toddler opened his mouth and shouted, "Ah! Ah, your head!" A tiny tree-ant with thin arms and legs suddenly popped out from between the green vine leaves that coiled around him and smacked the toddler's head without a second word. Why are you so stupid? You're already so old, so how did you end up like this? Qiuqiu scolded with an exasperated expression. How can you run around naked? You don't know shame. But I still want my old face. As he spoke, the tree fork-like hand repeatedly smacked the toddler's head 3 times. The toddler's face was fierce, and his eyes instantly filled with tears. On the side, Qing Shueshue's heart ached terribly when she saw this. She hurriedly pounced over and swatted away the tiny Trent's claws. She hugged the toddler and repeatedly said, "My child, how are you? Does your head hurt? Mother will have someone cook something delicious for you, so don't make a fuss." Arbor expressionlessly looked at Qing Shueshue's back and said after a while, "Your body has never been pregnant before, so how can you have a child?" When Qing Shueshue saw Arbor's stance, she hastily reached out to hug the toddler, who was entangled in the vines and couldn't move. "Xiaoqiao is my child. Don't think about snatching him away." "Nonsense." Qiuqiu stomped his feet in anger. "You clearly know what he is, so why do you keep making irresponsible remarks to us? I don't care. Xiaoqiao is my child. You can't take him away." Qing Shueshue glared at Arbor defensively. He turned around and pointed at the little tree-ant. "What the hell are you? A piece of wood that looked like it had a nose, eyes, hands, and feet. What exactly was it?" "You are the daughter of Her Majesty the Queen of Beauty Nation?" Arbor heard the way everyone addressed Qing Shueshue, and knew that the girl in front of her was probably the person whose status was second only to the queen in the entire womanland. Holding the child in her arms, Qing Shueshue stood up and tugged at the green vines tied to the child's body. "What is this? Hurry up and untie him. After you undo it, he will still hit you." The little stoic calmly stated the facts. "How did you know?" Qing Shueshue was exasperated. "Because he wants to come back to me. That's why he went crazy." Arbor was still very calm, but the words that came out of his mouth made Qing Shueshue uncomfortable. Qing Shueshue could not help but be amused. "Haha, you speak as if it's true. Why does my son want to return to your side? She's not your son. You haven't lived with someone before, so you don't have a son." The group of Phoenix clansmen squatting on the roof almost rolled off the roof. Fuck. Their Lord Holy daughter truly wouldn't rest until she shocked people to death with her words. Qing Shueshue's charming little face flushed red, and she looked at the 2 female officials beside her with a guilty conscience. Sure enough, the latter stared at her in shock with an expression of disagreement. Chapter 4288. Qing Shueshue was indignant, and she turned to glare at Arbor in a flustered and exasperated manner. Damn it! This stoic face actually exposed the mystery of the matter that she had originally kept a secret. It was truly infuriating. The two female officials glared at Princess Qing Shueshue with resentful gazes for a long time, and they couldn't help but beat their chests and stomp their feet. In that case, you didn't use any of the 18 handsome men Her Majesty the Queen bestowed to Princess Qing Shueshue last time? Mu Xingqian. Qing Shueshue awkwardly pursed her lips and moved back while hugging little Six, who was bound by vines. Her eyes contained incomparable sincerity as she looked at the two female officials and said, "Ladies, this matter is a misunderstanding. Let's go. This matter is of great importance. We must report it to Her Majesty the Queen." Qing Shueshue's face alternated between red and green. From the looks of it, she really wanted to pounce over and kill the two female officials to silence them. However, she couldn't move. She glared at Arbor like a tiger watching its prey and hugged fragment number 6 tightly, without letting go. She could feel that the child in her arms was struggling to break free. She quickly reached out and stroked the leaves on his head to appease him. "Little grass, don't panic. Mother is here, ah." The two female officials didn't leave immediately. After all, a woman with an unknown background had intruded into the princess's court. Their primary duty was still to protect Her Highness the Princess. Don't come over." She saw Arbor walking towards her. Qing Shueshue hurriedly hugged fragment little Six's body and retreated several steps. "I'm telling you, this is my child. You can't snatch him." Little Tree Qiuqiu angrily hopped onto Arbor's shoulder and placed one hand on his waist like a teapot. "What do you mean yours? Who's yours? Little Six, come back." Fragment little Six struggled and flapped his little hands and feet, trying to break free from Qing Shueshue's embrace. However, Qing Shueshue didn't loosen her grip on his hands and feet. Fragment little Six struggled for a long time but couldn't break free, and he anxiously screamed, "Ah!" Arbor stretched out a small hand and made a gesture of consoling Qing Shueshue. She turned to look at Qing Shueshue and said indifferently, "How can you return him to me?" Qing Shueshue stood in front of little Six and shoved his small body behind her. She said gloomily, "Yes. Although Xiaoqiao isn't my biological child, I picked him up from the sea. I treat him like my own son. I wouldn't trade him for anything." "You want his life force," Arbor said calmly. Qing Shueshue was stunned and her face immediately flushed red. "Don't be so self-righteous. I don't have any ulterior motives towards Xiaoqiao. If you did, you would be dead by now." Qing Shueshue was stunned again. Her eyes widened as she stared at Arbor in disbelief. You? Aren't you being too bold? Do you know who I am? Queen Qingsheng, Qing Shueshue. The next successor of Beauty Kingdom. It's good that you know. Qing Shueshue pouted. When she felt Xiaoqiao move behind her, she quickly held his little hand tightly. "Since I picked Xiaoqiao up a year ago, Xiaoqiao has been my family and my younger brother." Qing Shueshue guarded fragment little Six, who was behind her. She stared cautiously at Xiaomu. I won't give him to you." Emolian leaped and floated to Arbor's side. Mu Xingqian, Feng Zhangqing, Feng Zhangfei, and the others also leaped over and stood beside Arbor. Chapter 4289. You want to rob me? Qing Shueshue's porcelain white face darkened as she glared at the people in front of her. "Your Highness!" A large group of guards rushed over from all directions and surrounded Arbor, Emolian, and the others without any explanation. Qing Shueshue straightened her body and raised her hand to stop the guards from attacking. However, she still glared at Arbor warily. "I have no enmity with you, so leave quickly. I don't want to hurt anyone. Let me tell you, if you want to rob me, you've come to the wrong place." Qiuqiu was so angry that it hopped around indignantly on Xiaomu's shoulder. "You woman, what a weirdo. You want to rob my family's little Six, but you say we're robbing you?" Arbor patted Qiuqiu's head comfortingly and said faintly, "I heard that your alluring female kingdom has an unwritten rule. What are you trying to say?" Qing Shueshue had a cautious expression on her face as she held Xiao Cao's hand tightly. Her eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. It's said that your citizens can challenge other people's men if they like them. The winner can get this person? Emo Lian, Mu Xingqian. Qing Shueshua's legs almost gave out. Two female officials rushed up to support her. They clenched their fists tightly and shouted, "How dare you? Your Highness, accept her challenge." "Yes, Your Highness, accept her challenge. Don't be afraid. You can't be a coward. You can't embarrass Her Majesty." "That's right. Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness." Qing Shueshue nearly lost her footing, and she glared at Xiao Mu with her bulging eyes in exasperation. She shouted repeatedly, Where did you hear this from? There's no such thing." Arbor glanced at her leisurely. "Then why don't you give him back?" "Impossible." Qing Shueshue stood in front of Fragment Little Six and shouted angrily, "Don't even think about stealing my brother." Qiuqiu snorted. One moment he smashed, the next moment he took his brother. "Let me tell you, it's useless even if you call him husband. He's my Little Six, so he should be returned to my family." Qing Shueshue's face was flushed red as she gasped for breath. Unexpectedly, he was kicked by a small foot. When she looked back, she saw that Fragment Little Six had undone the vines binding him at some point in time. He happily fluttered over to Qiao Mu and hugged her calf at once. "Don't hug Master's leg," Qiuqiu said angrily. "You traitor." Scram. Fragment Little Six used its short legs to crawl towards Qiao Mu with all its might. However, a second later, Crown Prince Emo picked her up with a disdainful expression and shook her chubby little body. "Awah!" Qiuqiu hit the child's head with a tree branch in annoyance. "You're not a wolf, so what are you howling for?" Arbor looked at the interaction between the two brothers expressionlessly and said calmly, "You also liked to howl when you were young." Qiuqiu was speechless. Xiao Mu took out a brush and paper from her inner world, and with a flick of her finger, she flicked that letter of challenge to Qing Shueshue. "Today, at the Heavenly Battle platform at your gorgeous island's Great Beauty Plaza, we will respectfully await your Highness's arrival." Qing Shueshue hurriedly ran forward and took Xiao Cao from Emolian's hands. She hugged the struggling child and looked back at Arbor. She said angrily, "Let's fight then. Who's afraid of you?" "The princess is mighty, the princess is mighty," a group of female guards shouted with their fists clenched. Chapter 4290. In the backyard of the first princess residence. Suddenly, a human head popped out of the dog hole and nudged it a little. A female official standing in front of the hole turned her head. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" The voice was so loud that it almost pierced through the clouds, causing the princess to frown. Qing Shueshue smiled awkwardly. "Heh, female official Zhao, why are you here? If this official isn't here, does your Highness plan to slip away from here and not participate in the Heavenly Battle Platform's challenge? Hey you guys. Softer, softer, softer." Qing Shueshue was dragged out of the dog hole. She was held by two arms and dragged all the way back to her own courtyard. "How dare you?" Qing Shueshue tried her best to keep a straight face and said angrily, "Who told you to drag me back?" "Greetings, Your Highness." A dignified and calm middle-aged woman appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. Her appearance wasn't very exquisite, but her aura was very elegant. When Qing Shueshue saw her, her small face immediately fell. A moment later, Qing Shueshue lay on the bed and kept pounding the bed with her small fists. She wailed, "I can't beat her, I definitely can't beat her. You don't know how abnormal that fellow is. When we were on the street, even big sister Sikong Fuling wasn't her match. That little devil, if she whipped me with her vine I might die." The dignified and calm middle-aged woman looked calmly at a certain someone who was rolling around on the bed and wrapped in the blanket like a cocoon. She said softly, "The Heavenly Battle Platform's challenge has been reported to Your Highness." Qing Shueshue instantly froze and drooped her small head listlessly. Her entire body was filled with a gloomy aura that said, "I might die soon." "Wah!" Qing Shueshue covered her small face and raised her head to cry bitterly. "It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over." Her mind went blank and she agreed to fight. The result now was that she might not live past tonight. "Wah!" while one of the two female officials had a dark look on her face as she angrily called out, "Your Highness, can't you do this? Can you work harder? What do I have to fight for? I'm about to die." Qing Shueshue held the blanket and shouted anxiously, "I don't care, I don't care. In short, I can't go to the heavens battle stage, I'm sure I can't beat her. Even if we can't win, we still have to fight." The dignified woman said calmly. "Teacher." Qing Shueshue looked as if the sky was about to collapse. She looked at the woman with a distressed expression. Hilwan's expression remained calm. "Even if you can't beat me, you should at least go up on stage and accept your loss. Do you want the people of devastating female kingdom to look down on you?" Qing Shueshue revealed a pitiful expression. She hugged the quilt and cried out miserably, "I know. Master, why do you want to challenge her?" The little treant stood majestically on Arbor's shoulder, waving a small branch hand and shouting angrily, "Let's just take little Six back." Arbor raised his hand and stroked his little head. She took care of little Six for more than a year, and didn't have any bad intentions towards him. "I want her to willingly hand over little Six. Master, then will you be merciful to her?" Arbor shook his head. "I will respect my opponent, no matter who she is." Emolian's mouth twitched. Chapter 4291. The Great Beauty Plaza was extremely famous in Beauty Nation. This was because there were 4 pillars in the plaza, and each pillar had a statue of a handsome man standing on it. Some of them were valiant, while others were gentle and slender. All of them were young and beautiful, and quite eye-catching. The Heavens Battle stage was located at the center of the Beauty's Great Plaza. At this moment, the plaza was already filled with people. Those who came early had already occupied the advantageous terrain and climbed up to watch the battle. Around the plaza, the tea houses and wine shops that could clearly see the heavenly battle platform were also packed with people. Heads poked out of the window one after another, shouting along with the cheers of the crowd. Her Majesty Qing Yi, the Empress of Fallen Beauty Country, was sitting on the second floor of the tea house, in an elegant private room, calmly looking at the situation in the square. "Your Majesty, Her Highness Princess is not here yet." A female officer beside Yi Qingyi greets her respectfully and lowers her head. Qingyi couldn't help but rub her forehead. She really couldn't do anything to her daughter. She's here. Her Highness the Princess is here." An excited voice suddenly came from the window. Queen Qingyi stands up and goes to the window. Looking down from the second floor of the tea house, one could see that the square was filled with people. Qing Shueshue was escorted by more than a dozen female attendants. She was wearing an emerald green tight-fitting shirt with arrow sleeves, which made her round little face look very charming. When Qing Shueshue approached the heavenly battle stage, she saw the little stoic strolling over from the other side of the crowd. Her appearance was extremely delicate. Under her simple white clothes, there was no makeup on her small face. Such a cold and indifferent woman. As long as she walked in front of people, they would be unable to look away. Long Shengyun rolled her eyes. "Big brother, what's wrong?" It hadn't even been half a day since they entered devastating female kingdom, and this stoic face was already stirring up trouble and fighting with someone? "I heard that this guy is challenging the princess of devastating beauty country. Is there a need to be so explosive?" Long Huan's face was filled with helplessness. "Let's wait and see." The little stoic's husband and older brother didn't say anything, so they, as cousins, didn't need to be so long-winded. "Always causing trouble." Long Shengyun muttered unhappily. Your Highness. In the entire Beauty's Plaza, all the subjects of devastating beauty country were excitedly cheering for their princess. However, Princess Qing Shueshue's heart was beating like a drum. Hearing the shouts around her, she could only force herself to smile awkwardly. Qing Shueshue pulled open the silk button under her collar and neatly took off the embroidered cloak that was covering her. His movements looked extremely confident and at ease. With a swing of his cloak, he valiantly leaped into the air and did a somersault, landing on the Heavens Battle platform. As a result, the excited cries of the women in the Beauty Plaza became even more intense. Your Highness. Her Highness will win. The princess will win. Compared to the sea of people calling for the princess, Arbor was extremely quiet. The group of Phoenix clansmen actually wanted to cheer for their holy lady or something. But when Her Highness swept a cool glance over them, they could only shrink back their voices. The Phoenix clansmen were very certain that if they shouted now, Her Highness would definitely look at them with disdain, as if she was looking at an idiot. Chapter 4292. Qing Shueshue stood on the sky platform with her hands behind her back, and assumed a pose as she looked down the stage. Her gaze landed on Arbor, who was surrounded by everyone. The calmer the little stoic's expression was, the more scared Qing Shueshue felt. Could it be that she was imagining things? This stoic didn't use any fancy moves, and flew onto the stage to attract everyone's attention. She walked up the sky platform step by step, and stood in front of her. Qing Shueshue blocked with both hands, looking as if she was facing a great enemy. Where's little six? What little six? Qing Shueshue glared at her. Soon after, she saw female official Zhao walk over while holding an exquisite little doll carved from jade. There was an uproar below the stage. Hey, why is it a little doll? She's quite pretty, but isn't she too lacking in moral integrity? That's right. What are they fighting over such a small doll? Qing Shueshue was flustered and exasperated. She pounced over and hugged her little Chao, glaring at Arbor like a tiger eyeing its prey. Little Chao, don't worry. Older sister will definitely protect you. Fragment little six's meaty little fist swung at her face. He moved his little arms and legs, and reached out to Arbor with an sound. Qing Shueshue couldn't help but feel exasperated and grumpily pulled his little paw down. Little Chao, did you forget that we swore to be sworn brothers in the underwater canyon, that we would never be apart? Fragment little six looked at Qing Shueshue blankly. Female official Zhao expressionlessly snatched the child from Qing Shueshue's hands and bowed, saying, Your Highness, if you want to protect this child, you have to work hard. Little Chao, Qing Shueshue cried out sorrowfully and turned to glare at Arbor. What will it take for you to give up? Arbor shook his head and lightly raised his hand. A jade-green vine shot out from his palm and coiled around her wrist. Fragment little six, who was being held in female official Zhao's arms, immediately flailed his little arms and legs restlessly and whined, wanting to return. Female official Zhao helplessly restrained his arms and legs. Arbor turned his head and glanced at him indifferently. Fragment little six obediently stopped moving. Qing Shueshue's lips twitched as she murmured softly, It is indeed the sacred wood. The green vines on Arbor's wrist suddenly sprang out and fell to the ground in an instant. The thick vines wrapped around the entire sky battle stage. Tens of thousands of trees grew, plants grew, and verdant vines intertwined and grew, propping up a towering umbrella. The crowd couldn't help but let out a soft cry. Looking back, he saw that the vines under the eaves and the trees on the road had all sprung up, as if they had been injected with an excessive amount of vitality, growing upwards with a whoosh. Fragment little six twisted its chubby body restlessly, and an indescribable light shone from its small beady eyes. Arbor summoned a pitch-black ferrule from his consciousness, and held it in his hand. His gaze was clear and cold as he looked at Qing Shueshue before him. Do it. Female official Zhao held the child and turned to glance at He Luan, who had an indifferent expression. Lady He, female official Zhao sighed and said, How long do you think Her Highness the Princess can last in the other party's hands? Before He Luan could say anything, her eyelids jerked violently. Qing Shueshue darted forward and stretched out both hands, forcefully grasping the little stoic's hand that was holding the ferrule. Her legs turned to jelly, and she knelt in front of the other party. She raised her small head and shouted, I admit defeat. Chapter 4293. There was complete silence all around. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the princess, and couldn't find their voices for a long time. Mei Zhao's eyebrows twitched. She suddenly felt that she had overestimated the princess's moral integrity. It could be said that Her Royal Highness was born with no moral integrity. Arbor looked expressionlessly at Qing Shueshue, who was grabbing her right hand. You agreed to return little six to me? Qing Shueshue shook her head like a rattle drum. No, I won't return it. Va. What do you mean you won't return it? Little Chow, is my younger brother. Why should I return him to you? Fight then. I won't fight, I won't fight, I won't fight. Ah. Qing Shueshue clung to Arbor's hand and screamed. Don't think about bullying me. I can't beat you, I can't beat you. I won't fight with you. Arbor was speechless. From Seacombe Planet to the Divine Continent, she met many people along the way. There were many weirdos, but the weirdest girl couldn't compare to the one in front of her. You want to act shamelessly? Arbor stared at the lass with a strange expression. Who said I'm acting shamelessly? Qing Shueshue was frightened by her gaze, and her body trembled slightly. Then she hugged Arbor's right arm even more tightly. I can give you other things? In my Qingqing female kingdom's treasury, you can ask for any treasure. But you can't take little Chow away. Greetings, Your Majesty the Queen. Qing Shueshue heard the voices coming from all around. Her hands that were holding onto Arbor suddenly stiffened. She turned her neck mechanically, and saw the woman walking through the vines onto the heavenly battle stage. She almost fell to the ground. Xiao Mu raised her eyes and looked over. She saw Her Majesty the Queen walking up calmly. She wore an ink-colored robe with a cotton-red belt around her waist, and a small light green jade gourd on it. Who is Long Qian to you? Qing Ye's face had a hint of excitement. Xiao Mu examined the queen from head to toe. She wanted to pull her hand back, but Qing Shueshue refused to let go. She could only drag Qing Shueshue forward a few steps, and reluctantly saluted with cupped fists. It's my mother. Qing Yi looked at Arbor with excitement. After a while she nodded. Okay. With a wave of his hand, Arbor retrieved all the vines, and the platform regained its freshness. Child, follow me to the palace. The queen nodded at Arbor. Arbor took a small step, and found that he was dragging a guy on his wrist. This fellow was still holding onto her right hand tightly without letting go, even though she had already put the feral back into her conscious. Can you stop dragging me? It was really troublesome to walk like this. Then you promise me that you'll give up on Xiao Chao. Arbor shook his head. No. Qing Shueshue was furious. Why are you so stubborn? Don't even think about snatching Xiao Chao away from me. Arbor walked down the platform expressionlessly. Long Shangyun saw that he was still dragging Princess Qing Shueshue, and couldn't bear to look at them. Inside the Leaning Phoenix Pavilion, Her Majesty the Queen was leaning against a throne as she surveyed Xiao Mu, who was sitting in front of a small table, with a smile. Princess Qing Shueshue was still hanging onto Arbor's right arm like a ghost. After being glared at by the queen, Qing Shueshue's entire body stiffened, but her hands were still hanging onto Arbor's arm. Extremely rude. The queen reprimanded. Why aren't you letting go? No, mother. I want her to promise not to snatch Xiao Chao away from me. Chapter 4294. The queen glared at her and reprimanded. You've already lost. What else do you want? Qing Shueshue wished that she could roll around on the ground. She looked at her mother with pleading eyes and cried out. Mother, I picked Xiao Chao up from the sea. I Qing Shueshue looked at Arbor, who was looking down at her. She moved her mouth and retracted her hand, feeling aggrieved. She obediently knelt beside Arbor. She turned around and looked at Arbor seriously. More than a year ago, I was in trouble in the underwater canyon. It was Xiao Chao, who accidentally saved my life. I'm not coveting his vitality. I just want to protect him and take good care of him. Arbor looked at her and nodded after a long time. He's a fragment of the sacred wood seed. He's a part of my Qiuqiu. Arbor raised his hand and patted the little treant on his shoulder. He turned to look at Qing Shueshue and said, I respect little Six's choice. If he doesn't want to come back and wants to stay by your side, then I won't force him. It's just that he can't grow. He'll probably stay in this form in the future. Qiuqiu squatted on little Masta's shoulder and glared fiercely at the child in Mei Zhao's arms. You dare to make little Masta sad, I'll destroy you. The fragment little Six quickly pushed Mei Zhao away and ran to Arbor's side with its short legs. It threw itself into his arms. Qing Shueshue lowered her head pitifully. The queen waved at her daughter and called her to her side. She said in a low voice. Shue. Fate brings us together. You can't force it. Since the sacred wood seed saved your life, it's your benefactor. You can't force it to stay or go. Otherwise, wouldn't you be biting the hand that feeds you? I know. Qing Shue said listlessly with her head drooped. The queen smiled and patted her daughter's hand. Then return the sacred wood seed to your sister Arbor. Qing Shue nodded her little head. She still didn't have much energy, but she didn't make trouble for no reason. Xingchen Qiao, may I call you this? The queen looked gently at Mu Xingchen and Xiao Mu, who were seated below her. The two of them nodded. The queen smiled and said, Your mother and I were once sworn sisters with different surnames. We have a deep relationship. In the future, you can call me Aunt Yi. She placed her hand on the light green jade gourd hanging from her waist, a look of nostalgia and melancholy on her face. In the blink of an eye, so many years have passed. Back then, the scenes of me and your mother training outside are still vivid in my mind. Your mother and I are sworn sisters. You and Shue should address each other as brothers and sisters. Long Shangyun sat beside her brother and tugged at Long Huan's sleeve. Long Huan secretly patted her hand, indicating for her to calm down. Qing Shue stood up and curtsied to Mu Xingchen. She then curtsied to Qiao Mu with a drooping head. Brother Xingchen, sister Qiao, Shue was insensible earlier and made a fool of herself in front of you. Arbor and Mu Xingchen both stood up and returned Qing Shue's bow. Then the three of them sat down together. Mo Lian turned his head to glance at his wife with a smile. Xingchen Jojo, tomorrow is the most joyous day in our beauty kingdom. Why don't you stay and spend the day with me? The queen asked with a smile. Xiao Mu nodded. Auntie Yi, can you tell us about mother? Chapter 4295. The queen's eyes revealed a trace of yearning and reminiscence. She raised her hand to invite everyone to the feast and said softly, That year, your mother and I were training in the Forgotten River Cold Valley. We encountered many dangers, but also many opportunities. Your mother became famous at a young age. At that time in the Forgotten River, she was known far and wide. When people mentioned your mother, they would give her a thumbs up. The queen couldn't help but laugh when she mentioned this. I was unconvinced and went to find her to fight. During the feast, the queen talked about many past events, and the younger generation listened with great interest. When night fell, the queen naturally let them stay in the palace. Arbor pushed open the window and looked at the half-moon hanging high above the trees. Her eyes revealed a trace of reminiscence. Big brother drank a lot today. Mo Lian hugged her waist from behind and lowered his head to rub against her head. Because Big Brother is very happy today. Arbor nodded slightly. They all felt that it was very novel to be able to hear so many of their mother's old stories. It seemed that in their hearts, they felt that they were one step closer to their mother. Holy Land of Snow Ridge, Forgotten River Cold Valley, Abyss of Sacrificial Sea, Pond Lotus Sacred Land. Arbor whispered. Auntie said that my mother has been to all of these famous adventure holy lands in the Forgotten River. When I stepped into this sea area, it was as if I could feel her presence. There are traces of her everywhere. This feeling was somewhat strange, but also made them happy. Mo Lian lowered his head and kissed her little face. Yes, we can be one step closer to our mother. Arbor turned to look at him and raised her hand to hug his neck. Wherever Jojo goes, Jojo's lotus will follow. Mo Lian couldn't help but want to laugh. He nodded and leaned closer to her. Of course. Jojo, your husband will always be with you. He rubbed his lips on her face and reached out to carry her horizontally. He turned and opened the curtain. The next morning, Arbor was awakened by a loud noise. He opened his misty eyes in a daze. She looked around and saw that her husband was dressed in a light blue robe. His phoenix-like eyes were sparkling, and he had a faint smile on his face. He looked refreshed as he walked into the house. Very naturally, he lifted his wife up and helped her wash up and dress. Mo Lian leaned close to her ear and whispered, The queen's birthday is starting. It's so lively outside. Qiao, let's go out and take a look. Today there are all kinds of hawkers on the streets. There's a dazzling array of food and drinks outside. Let's go out and eat. Arbor nodded. His eyelids were still drooping. He was not fully awake yet. Emolian couldn't help but chuckle after wiping her face. He kissed her on the lips and said, "Qiao Qiao, you look so cute with that blank expression on your face. She still hasn't woken up? Take a look at your husband." Arbor glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. She reached out a little paw and pushed his handsome face that was close to hers. Emolian couldn't help but laugh. He took her little paw in his hand and bit it gently. "Don't push. Don't push me." Arbor's mind cleared up a little at his teasing. She nuzzled her head against Emolien's shoulder. "Jojo's lotus, it's hotter today than yesterday, isn't it?" Jojo's lotus was warm in winter and cool in summer. It was comfortable to hug her. Emolien's body temperature was lower than usual. For a cultivator like him, his body temperature could rise or fall as he wished. Chapter 4296. Emolien narrowed her eyes and rubbed her head against Arbor's body a little proudly. "It's hot outside, but with me hugging you, Jojo won't feel hot." "Older sister Qiao, older sister Qiao." Loud shouts came from outside. The door to the private room was shaken from the outside, and the door bolt fell off. Qing Shueshue rushed in recklessly. Arbor immediately pushed Emolien away, jumped down from his body, and straightened his clothes. Qing Shueshue rushed in quickly, so she naturally saw that the two of them were originally stuck together. But they suddenly separated when she came in. Emolien immediately became a little unhappy. His handsome face darkened as he said unhappily, "Why didn't you knock and just barge in?" Qing Shueshue was instantly embarrassed. She scratched her head and quickly escaped outside. I'll wait for you outside." Arbor shook his head. Qing Shueshue, as a princess, had such a carefree and strange personality. It was really difficult for the queen. The two of them tidied up a little and walked out hand in hand. They saw Qing Shueshue standing in front of the main hall, pacing back and forth. When she turned around and saw the two of them, Qing Shueshue's eyes couldn't help but brighten. "Older sister Qiao, it's very lively outside today. I'll take you out for a walk." "Oh right, where's Xiaoqiao? Let him out too. Xiaoqiao loves to watch a lively scene." Arbor glanced at her and raised his hand to summon Fragment Little 6. The little doll hung on her arm. She hugged it tightly and swung it left and right in the air. Qing Shueshue quickly reached out to hug it. "Xiaoqiao, did you miss me?" Fragment Little 6 indicated that he didn't miss her. He faced Qing Shueshue with the back of his head and hung on Arbor's arm, continuing to act cute and obedient. Qing Shueshue angrily muttered "little heartless," but still reached out to take Fragment Little 6. She turned to Arbor and smiled. "Let's go, I'll take you out for a walk." "Your Highness." Female officer Zhao bowed as she entered, her face solemn and dignified. Behind her, a man in embroidered clothes with a jade-like face and slim figure followed in. He bowed to everyone with a gentle expression. "Song Feng greets Your Highness, Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Qing Shueshue looked a little frightened and hid behind Arbor. Arbor was a little startled. She looked young Master Song Feng up and down and raised her eyebrows slightly. "This is young Master Song Feng. He stood out in the Beauty Appreciation Conference." Female officer Zhao said expressionlessly. "He is also one of the servants that Her Majesty the Queen bestowed upon the princess. Your Highness is going out today, so please take young Master Song Feng with you." Qing Shueshue instantly revealed a hopeless expression. She clutched Xiao Mu's sleeve tightly as she hid behind Xiao Mu. She only stuck out her head and hollered without any dignity. "No need. This royal princess has someone to keep me company today. No, we don't need him to follow us." Female officer Zhao's face was solemn and dignified. "This is Her Majesty the Queen's order. Your Highness has long been of marriageable age. It's time to get married and have children, so that our Qing Chung royal family can have children." Qing Shueshue immediately shrank behind Arbor with a panicked expression. Female officer Zhao, you go find someone else." Arbor turned to look at Qing Shueshue. Seeing that her panic didn't seem to be fake, she couldn't help but curse in her heart. Is this girl suffering from androphobia? Female officer Zhao ignored her and cupped her hands, saying, "After the Queen's birthday, Your Highness, please take young master back to the mansion." Qing Shueshue clutched Arbor's sleeve tightly. Chapter 4297. After Mei Zhao glanced at her and left, Qing Shueshue was still nervously holding on to Arbor, her eyes glaring at young Master Song Feng in front of her. Arbor pulled her sleeve out of Qing Shueshue's hand, lightly brushed the creases on it, and coldly stared at the smiling young master in embroidered clothes standing at the door. I was wondering why the 7 flowers of Spring Pavilion came here. It turns out it's because young Master Song Feng is here. She really didn't expect that a male procuress of a small brothel could now openly enter the residence of the first princess of Womanland. This was really strange. It was hard for people not to be puzzled. I've embarrassed myself in front of the crown princess. Young Master Song Feng smiled, neither servile nor overbearing. I only won at the beauty pageant because of good luck. According to the custom of Womanland, anyone who wins at the beauty pageant can be granted a new identity by Her Majesty the Queen, regardless of their origin or past. Arbor glanced at him indifferently, nodded, and didn't continue. On the side, Qing Shueshue turned to look at Arbor, a little excited. You know him? Why don't you take him back? Xiao Mu glared daggers at her, while Crown Prince Emo also cast a sidelong glance at Qing Shueshue. Qing Shueshue's small body trembled for no reason, and then she swallowed back her words. I'm just joking. Why are you so serious? I know you have a husband. Your husband is so beautiful. You really don't like other people. Arbor only felt that Qing Shueshue's words were a little strange. What, if her husband wasn't beautiful? Could she change her husband at any time? Sir Jojo didn't want to talk to a good-looking dog. Let's go. Today is my mother's birthday. All the drinks in the streets and alleys are free. I'll take you to drink our Womanland's most famous New Hong. We'll eat the most delicious barbecue. Let's go. Qing Shueshue led Arbor and others out of the palace gate and went to the busiest street. Long Shengyun followed behind them and tugged at Long Huan's arm. Long Huan helplessly turned to look at his younger sister. Shengyun, the matter of Aunt Chu Yin being on good terms with the Queen of Beauty Kingdom is also recorded in our clan's records. What's wrong with you? Don't you find it strange? Long Shengyun glanced at Qing Shueshue in front of her. How can a princess have such a straightforward personality? It's as if she doesn't understand the affairs of the world at all. Her Majesty doesn't only have one daughter, right? It is said that this princess was able to summon the power of the sea from the moment she was born. This is Beauty Kingdom's family matter. What does it have to do with us? Long Huan shook his head and said, Shengyun, why do you care about this? I think Arbor might have been fooled. Long Shengyun curled her lips. She looks fierce, but she's just a child. After a few words from others, you're already running around with them. Perhaps that princess is hiding some evil intentions. How would she be able to tell? Long Huan looked at her strangely. Shengyun, why are you worried about her? Long Shengyun glared. Why should I be worried about her? I'm not worried about her. It's just that we're going the same way. If something happens to her, it might implicate us siblings. Long Shengyun rolled her eyes. Don't worry. Cousin might look young, but she's much smarter than you. She won't be fooled. Chapter 4298. Don't worry. I reckon that whoever tries to deceive her will be in trouble. Long Huan shook his head and said in a low voice. Moreover, cousin's methods are very sharp. If someone really messes with her, I'm afraid they'll have to face the consequences. Long Shengyun glared at her brother angrily. Brother, your evaluation of this person is getting higher and higher. Long Huan silently lowered his eyes and only cursed in his heart. That's because we've suffered so much in her hands. That evaluation is accumulated from past bloody experiences. Who's worried about her? Long Shengyun angrily turned and ran towards the crowded street. Brother, my ivory tricelet is broken. Buy me a new one. Arbor withdrew his gaze from Long Shengyun and turned to look at Princess Qing Shueshue, who was squeezing in front of the crowd and buying things for little Six. Emo Lien raised his eyebrows and said, Suspicious? Arbor shook his head. If Qing Shueshue didn't want to return little Six to me, she could have ordered people to surround and attack us that day in the princess residence. But she didn't. She even said she didn't want to hurt anyone and told us to leave on our own. Arbor said softly. A person's eyes can't lie. She's just a playful person. She's not a bad person. And I can feel that strong water spirit energy in her body. It's second only to holy water. Arbor said softly. If she had fought with me on the heavenly battle platform that day, I might not have been able to defeat her with just the power of holy wood. Unless she used other methods, such as talismans, poison techniques, or summoning the power of earth and water spirits to use holy water to suppress the 9 layers of spirit water in Qing Shueshua's body. Mo Lian smiled faintly as he reached out to hold his wifey's hand, his face full of pride. He knew that as long as his Jojo calmed down, he would be able to see the situation and people's hearts clearly. His Jojo was very smart. Although Little Six dislikes her, he doesn't reject her. Arbor said softly. Who knows what will happen if they meet or part if they meet? They don't have much time left together. Let them be. Jojo, you're so nice. Mo Lian smiled and shook Jojo's little hand. Her eyes fell on young Master Song Feng, who was following behind Qing Shueshue, and she frowned slightly. That person? Arbor frowned and said thoughtfully. I think I've seen him somewhere before. Mo Lian paused for a moment, then curled her lips and snorted. Isn't it just the spring house? He had also seen that male procuress from the spring-filled house. Mo Lian remembered that when he went to find Sir Qiao Qiao, he had met this person 7 flowers, as well as Fan Meng and Fan Yu once or twice. No. Qiao Mu shook her head and knitted her small brows. No, it's not spring. However, she always felt that there were some things in her mind that couldn't be connected. If she could find the pattern, she would naturally be able to unravel this mystery. Mo Lian was stunned when he heard that. He turned to look at young Master Song Feng, and took a deep look. Jojo, this is easy. He leaned close to her and whispered in her ear. Arbor nodded. Yes, be careful. Of course. Mo Lian held her little hand, and pulled her to a stall on the side. Jojo, do you want tofu pudding? Yes. Jojo's eyes lit up. Without her husband holding her hand, she walked in that direction with small steps. Chapter 4299. The tofu pudding stall on the street had 5 or 6 tables, and they were all occupied by the crowd. If the young couple wanted to eat, they could only stand there and hold it in their hands. Even so, Lady Jojo was still in high spirits. She rarely came out for a stroll, and she usually didn't like crowded places. But since it was rare for her to come out for a stroll, it was also a life experience to occasionally enjoy this kind of crowded place. Holy Maiden, what flavor do you want to eat? This subordinate will buy it for you. Do you want something spicy? Do you want something spicy? Scram. Mo Lian brushed aside a long-winded Wind Clan member, and took out some money to buy a bowl of light flavor. Jojo, your husband actually knows how to make it. Next time, let's make it at home. You can choose the flavor. Arbor nodded and reached for the spoon. But Mo Lian grabbed her little hand, and held the bowl in one hand, and the spoon in the other. She scooped a mouthful and brought it to her lips. Be careful, it's hot. Lady Jojo was used to being served by her husband at home, so she naturally ate a mouthful with a clear conscience, and obediently accepted the crown prince's feeding. But for some reason, she suddenly felt that the surroundings were a little quiet. So Arbor turned around to look. She saw that the men and women in front of 5 or 6 tables were all staring at the two of them without blinking. The envy in the women's eyes couldn't be concealed at all. Wow, look at that girl's husband, he's so virtuous. Yes, he looks like a celestial that walked out of a painting. TSK, those phoenix eyes are so seductive. My heart can't help but pound. Where can I find such a beautiful and virtuous husband? Mo Lian. Suddenly, a woman wearing a leopard print cloak stood up and cupped her hands at Arbor. Hey, this girl. I'll pay 10,000 spirit coins to buy this husband beside you. Are you willing to sell him to me? If you're not satisfied with the price, I can increase it further. Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but burst out laughing. Heavens, what are these women thinking? Unexpectedly, the woman's eyes lit up as she looked at him. She pointed at Feng Zhangfei and said, Young lady, I'll bid 15,000 spirit coins if you add this person. Feng Zhangfei was dumbfounded. 20,000? 30,000? 30,000. Jojo was so angry that her face turned red. Before her husband could explode, she roared, "Get lost!" Her voice was long and menacing, and the surrounding women couldn't help but tremble. However, the silence lasted for less than 3 seconds, and once again, a fearless and angry roar erupted. "Hey miss, look at you. That's not right. You can't have so many men by yourself, right?" "That's right." "Hey, wait a minute. Aren't you the girl I met at the dock yesterday? The one who abandoned me?" Right, I recognize her. I recognize her unique stoic face. That's her. Yesterday at the dock, a girl pointed a sword at her and told her to go back and consummate with her big brother. What? There's such a thing? Did she offend someone's unmarried man and then refuse to take responsibility? Hey, she has more than 100 husbands with her. Too greedy. Arbor. A Phoenix clansman hurriedly stepped forward and said to the surrounding crowd, "Everyone disperse. There's no such thing. I a little Langjun." Chapter 4300. A perverted hand picked up that Phoenix youth's hand and stroked him back and forth with an intoxicated expression. "How can you be so stubborn?" That Phoenix youth's handsome face instantly stiffened. He tried to pull his hand back, but he couldn't do so due to the crowd. Arbor flew into a rage when he saw this. He kicked that woman in the chest, sending her flying several meters away and crashing into a nearby flower rack with a bang. Instantly, a series of shocked screams were heard, and the flower racks that had been set up collapsed one after another. "Fuck!" Long Shangyun looked back and couldn't help but exclaim while holding her forehead. "What's that stoic face doing?" Long Huan's jaw also dropped to the ground in shock, and he muttered to himself, "I told them to cover their faces on the streets, but none of them listened to me. Great, now they're being chased and intercepted. Brother, be careful. It's so chaotic here. Let's go to the side first." Boom! A huge crashing sound came from the docks. Qing Shueshiwe, who was grinning as she hugged Fragment Little Six and bought him candy figurines to play with, was slightly startled. She immediately looked up at the docks. Thick smoke billowed over from that side, and the dense black fog almost covered half the sky. Something happened at the docks. Female officer Zhao walked up with a sullen expression and cupped her hands at Qing Shueshiwe, saying, "Your Highness, please stay here for the time being. This lowly official will hurry over to take a look." "Let's go together." Qing Shueshiwe turned to look for Arbor, but she was so happy earlier that she wandered around the streets with Fragment Little Six in her arms, so she had long been separated from Arbor and the others. "Ah!" Fragment Little Six reached out his small hand and hit her head hard. Qing Shueshiwe couldn't help but laugh. "It's too dangerous over there. Go back and find your master. Take him back to Sister Qiao and Brother Xingchen." A female attendant walked up and bowed with one hand across her chest. Then, she reached out to take the child, who kept kicking his little legs. Qing Shueshiwe rubbed his small head and turned to quickly leave the crowd with female officer Zhao, running towards the docks. The female attendant carried the fragment of Little Six and hurriedly squeezed into the crowd, trying her best to retreat in the direction she had come from. But now, the crowd was scattered in all directions, all wanting to escape home. The streets were full of stumbling people. It was not easy for the waitress to find Arbor and the others in a short time. After running for a short while, the waitress suddenly felt a weight on her shoulder. Startled, he turned his head and saw a woman with extremely white skin wearing a thin red veil. Her face was exceptionally beautiful and enchanting, and she was smiling at him. In the next second, the waitress felt a sharp pain in her neck and fell to the ground. Fragment Little Six was very sensitive. When it sensed the incoming danger, it cleverly transformed into a green vine with a bang and abruptly drilled into the crowd. "Earth Treasure Heavenly Bell." Sikong Fuling chuckled as she tossed out a giant black bell, which suddenly caught the fleeing green vine. Thump, 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 thump. The holy wood fragment violently slammed into the giant bell, angrily trying to escape. Sikong Fuling's bare feet were adorned with two bells jingling around her ankles. She walked to the giant bell with the mask on the ground and said with a grin, "Stop messing around. This is the Earth Treasure Heavenly Bell that has already matured into a divine weapon. If the complete holy wood was here, it naturally wouldn't be able to do anything to you. Unfortunately, you're only a pitiful fragment. Now, you can negotiate terms with the little stoic, right? Chapter 4301. Speaking of which, she had secretly observed the little stoic for quite a while, and carefully pondered why she wanted to challenge the princess. It was only now that she realized her objective. This little stoic had turned back to devastating island midway for this holy wood. Holy wood. Speaking of which, it was truly tempting. She reached out to hold that shrunken earth treasure heavenly bell, and lightly flicked her finger on the small black bell. She could still hear the sounds of impact coming from inside. In order to make this stoic face owe her a huge favor, she truly spent a lot of effort, and wasted a lot of energy. Sikong Fuling looked down faintly at the holy wood fragment shrouded in the earth treasure heavenly bell inside. Truly a naughty child. She already told it to stop making a fuss, yet it continued to torment itself endlessly. It was clearly the holy wood spirit of the 5 elemental spirits, but its intelligence seemed to be a bit low. Boom! Black chi soared into the sky from the dock's direction. Sikong Fuling's expression turned solemn, and she put away the earth treasure heavenly bell before calling out to Meng Meiyu and the others behind her. Let's go. There was no time to lose. She had to contact Arbor before chaos broke out on devastating island. It was fine for her to fantasize about something like the Holywood fragment, but if she really wanted to absorb it, she would probably die a horrible death. Besides, this was only one of the tree fragments. Who knew if the holy wood's main body would retaliate against her out of humiliation after catching up? She couldn't afford to gamble on a matter that concerned her life. Qing Xue and Mei Jiao rushed to the entrance of the harbor, and happened to see a giant 3-story ship ramming toward the shore again. The harbor, which had been hit by 2 large ships in succession, was now in a complete mess. The nearby ships of all sizes had been smashed into smithereens, and there were even many injured people lying on the ground near the harbor, unable to get up even after groaning for a long time. The sword maidservants rushed over upon hearing the news, and guarded Her Highness the Princess, and Mei Jiao, as if they were facing a great enemy. Hiss! A strange sound rang out. When everyone looked up, and saw a strange person, with almost all of his facial features jumping out of the ship, and letting out a loud roar. The pupils of Princess Qing Xue, Mei Jiao, and the others contracted slightly. This clearly wasn't a human. Presumably, there was no need to elaborate on what it was. Everyone present was clear about it. A monster with strange facial features and stiff limbs. Zombie. Corpse puppets, so many corpse puppets. A panic-stricken middle-aged man crawled up from the ground, and let out a series of sharp screams. There were indeed a lot of undead puppets. Countless undead puppets crawled out from the 2 crooked ships. They hung on the lattice of the cabin windows and lay on the deck. Suddenly, they jumped up and landed on the harbor like giant reptiles, attacking the crowd. Female Officer Zhao's solemn face was completely tangled up. She drew her dagger from her waist, raised her hand and shouted, "Protect Her Highness! Protect Her Highness!" All the female attendants drew their swords from their waists, and slashed at the zombies without hesitation. Qing Xue's face was extremely pale. Qing City Island was located outside of the Forgetful River, and was located in a remote area. From here to the Forgetful River, even the fastest ship would take 10 days. Distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. They couldn't ask for help at all. Under the attack of countless corpse puppets, the originally flourishing devastating island's docks were instantly reduced to ruins. Chapter 4302. The scattered crowd on the street, like grasshoppers in a pot, fled in all directions and rushed straight to their homes. Arbor was carried by Emolian, and jumped onto the roof. Mu Xingchen, Long Shangyun, Long Huan, Feng Changqing, and the others also hurriedly jumped onto the eaves to avoid being crowded with the crowd, and making it difficult to walk. "What's going on?" Long Shangyun asked with a puzzled expression. "The sound seems to be coming from the dock. Do we need to go over and take a look?" Arbor frowned. He glanced around and saw young Master Songfeng's slender figure being pushed back and forth in the crowd. Two maids were trying their best to protect him, but the crowd came in the opposite direction and pushed them to the left and right, immediately scattering them. Arbor gently pulled Emolien's sleeve. Emolien immediately understood, and with a flick of his finger, a purple line of fire blazed towards young Master Songfeng. "What are you doing?" Long Shangyun saw this and couldn't help but exclaim. Was this couple a troublemaker? None of them were easy to deal with. There was no enmity between them, so why did they provoke that young Master Songfeng? Seeing that the purple flame was about to burn the corner of young Master Songfeng's clothes, one of the maids rushed forward without thinking about her own safety, and used her sword to resist the purple line of fire. Emolien naturally didn't want to hurt people, so when she saw the woman rushing over, she withdrew the fire. She squeezed Arbor's little hand and turned to smile at her. "Stay here." After throwing down this sentence, Crown Prince Mo's slender figure floated down and abruptly flashed to young Sir Songfeng's side, attacking him without warning. "Young Master Mo, what are you doing? My young master has no cultivation and doesn't know martial arts." The maid exclaimed and hurriedly came forward to resist, and she even pushed young Master Songfeng back very dutifully. Emolien didn't bother with this woman and knocked her down with a finger. Then he rushed to young Master Songfeng. A slender, jet-black long sword appeared in his hand in an instant. With a strong gust of wind, it went straight for young Master Songfeng's neck. This young Master Songfeng silently looked at Prince Mo, who was thrusting his sword towards him. The fleeing crowd was frightened by Prince Mo's actions and couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The speed of his moves was simply too fast, so fast that it was somewhat dazzling. While most people were still in shock, Prince Mo's sword had already reached young Master Songfeng's neck. If he didn't dodge, Prince Mo's sword would definitely slit his throat, causing blood to gush out. Long Shangyun could not help but be shocked. She subconsciously grabbed her brother's sleeve. Wasn't this crown prince of the divine land too temperamental? Why would he suddenly attack a defenseless man? What was he trying to achieve? Ding! A flying dagger as thin as a cicada's wing collided with Emolien's sword in the nick of time. Prince Mo's sword was a few inches lower, and at that moment, young Master Songfeng took 2 steps back and quickly avoided his sword. Emolien slightly raised the corners of his mouth. Without any explanation, the Raven Moon sword in his hand stabbed at young Master Songfeng again. This time, the sword emitted a faint purple flame, and the fire spirit instantly expanded and spread, sweeping out an arc of strong wind. It suddenly fell on young Master Songfeng. The surrounding people couldn't help but exclaim. They originally thought this delicate and elegant young master would be swept away and seriously injured after being hit by the Crown Prince's sword. Chapter 4303. However, that wasn't the case. A piece of divine armor floated on young Master Songfeng's arms, and a ball of water spirit circulated in his hands, imperceptibly emitting waves of oppressive might. Emolien tried a few more times, and a cold killing intent crept onto her lips. Her phoenix eyes roamed as she stared menacingly at the person in front of her. No wonder Jojo said you looked familiar. As expected, you're an acquaintance. The instant Emolien made a move to probe him, young Master Songfeng knew that he couldn't hide his identity anymore. Thus, he didn't try to conceal his identity anymore, and tried in vain to continue concealing it. In reality, this little stoic's senses were truly quite sharp. Once she became suspicious, even if she didn't attack you for the time being, she would probably probe you as much as possible until you completely gave yourself away. Young Master Songfeng smiled faintly, and a long sword made of water spirit appeared in his hand. As expected, it's me who appeared here. Was it too deliberate? At this time, the little stoic had already floated down. Long Qi, Long Shangyun, and the others also followed her down in confusion. Due to the battle between Prince Mo and young Master Songfeng just now, the crowd here had already fled in all directions. Only they and the 100 Phoenix tribe disciples stood on the empty half of the street. Arbor stared coldly at him. You never thought of hiding yourself in the first place. That's why he admitted it so openly. Devastating island should be surrounded by now, right? Arbor swept him an indifferent glance. The little stoic is still as smart as ever. Young Master Song Feng chuckled faintly and nodded. Take a guess, can you all escape? Emolian suddenly smiled at him. Why don't you take a guess first? A guess? I can't. Young Master Song Feng spread his hands with a smile, and his gaze swept over everyone. The instant the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Holy Sun Mi Yin appeared, young Master Song Feng's expression changed slightly, and he said, seal off divine senses. Instantly, many people rushed out from the eaves in all directions, and each of them held an ancient bronze mirror in their hands. As soon as the light in the mirror fell, the entire area was sealed inside a mirror formation. Arbor gave it a try. As expected, divine senses really didn't work. She pulled out a jade storage talisman from her waist and flicked it into the air. 17 to 18 god powers balls instantly poured out of the talisman and were tossed toward the eaves in all directions with a wave of her hand. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion resounded throughout the entire street. Many people on the eaves were hit by the god power of God's balls. Young Master Song Feng's eyes flickered slightly, and he sighed. How can you be so ruthless, Qiao Qiao? Without another word, Xiao Mu's vine whip lashed out at his face. His methods were ruthless and swift, and no one could compare to him. Before long Shangyun could react, she saw Xiao Mu whip young Master Song Feng's outer robe. Of Master Swindlers. She glanced coldly at young Master Song Feng. A bunch of damn swindlers. 7 flowers suddenly appeared on the eaves, each guarding a corner in 2s and 3s. They looked down coldly. You're the one who intercepted and killed us in Red River Canyon and Phoenix Grove, ghost-faced hall master. Damn shameless swindler. Die. Arbor's voice was chilly. When her gaze landed on young Master Song Feng, there wasn't the slightest bit of warmth. They were all swindlers. They all lied to her. Chapter 4304. What bullshit about wanting to be friends with you? What little stoic girl? Long time no see, it was all a lie. Damn liar. How could they have no cultivation at all? Heavenly Fate could actually use a special technique to hide all their cultivation realms? Even she, Emolian, and everyone else were fooled by them? What kind of method was this? Arbor stared coldly at Gong Song Feng in front of him, and lashed out with his vine whip again. Young Master Song Feng suddenly tugged at the whip handle and sighed. Little girl, you're really hot-tempered. Are you willing to come with us? It's much more interesting than going to the River of Forgetfulness. Arbor responded by summoning the startled swan dagger from his sleeve and swiping it across his throat like lightning. His Gong Song Feng fell backward. With a soft clang, a transparent flying dagger, like a cicada's wing, blocked the startled swan dagger for him again. You're still so savage, even with your divine sense locked. Young Master Song Feng sighed softly. When he looked at Arbor, his eyes flickered. You don't want to go? Our place is fun. At least much more fun than the River of Forgetfulness. After listening for so long, Mu Xingchen finally couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Red River Canyon? Feng Milan? He's the Grimace Hall Master, who wears a silver grimace mask? I've made a fool of myself. Gong Song Feng smiled graciously at Mu Xingchen, Emolian, Ma Shichen, and the others. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal raised his eyebrows, and also smiled at him. How about it? Are you ready to die? Young Master Song Feng blinked and smiled meaningfully. It's not time for me to die yet. But it's hard to say for everyone. With that, he raised his hand, and the many Heavenly Fate disciples on the eaves readied their huge arrows, and were about to shoot. Who can these lousy arrows do anything to us? Ma Shichen pursed his lips. With a wave of his hand, thousands of green vines drilled out from under his feet, and instantly wrapped around the place. However, the arrowhead never fell. Red, who was standing on the eaves, looked down at the crowd with a smile. Attract thunder. A series of noises came from behind. Countless flying swords flashing with the power of lightning emerged from the eaves, and aimed at the people below. Arbor glanced at it expressionlessly. He took out a bunch of defensive charms from his storage talisman, and spread them out in front of him with a cold expression. Countless god power beads jumped out of the storage talisman. Even Gong Songfeng couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the dense and overwhelming number of god power beads. At this moment, in this situation, in everyone's hearts the word fuck popped up in capital letters. Where did you get so many god power pearls? Are you planning to tear down the entire street? Oh no. Are you planning to blow up the entire devastating island? I don't know if I'll die or not. But today, even if you don't die, you have to leave something behind. Xiao Mu did not shout in a shrill voice, but one could sense an exceptionally chilly intent in her icy voice. That eerie coldness made one's heart feel as if it was about to freeze. Mo Lian and the others all lowered their heads and glanced at the little girl. Looking at her expression, they really couldn't see anything. But those who knew her well could feel that the anger in the little girl's heart had completely exploded like a volcano. Explode. Wait! Gong Songfeng's eyebrows twitched. Just as he was about to call out, he saw the little girl fiercely raise her hand. Countless godly power balls exploded at that moment, giving off a chilling sound. Chapter 4305. Mo Lian quickly grabbed his wife and stopped her from pouncing forward to slit the Ghostface Hall Master's neck. Although the little fellow was quite strong, she was obviously not Gong Songfeng's match. To deal with a cunning and intelligent person like Gong Songfeng, it was naturally better to let idle people like Mi Yan and He Chen deal with him. As a matter of fact, the entire devastating island was on the verge of collapse from the terrifying and concentrated explosions. The streets were crisscrossed with deep ravines. He Chen and Mi Yan had already taken advantage of the chaos to rush to Gong Songfeng's side and attacked him without saying a word. It was already difficult for Gong Songfeng to deal with the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal alone, not to mention that Mi Yan was also joining in the fun. Hall Master Gong could only retreat step by step. While he was in dire straits, two figures flashed to Gong Songfeng's side. Fan Meng's cold and solemn face was expressionless. She raised the flying knife in her hand, that was as thin as a cicada's wing, and blocked Holy Sun Mi Yan's attack. Then, she leaped forward with Fan Yu, and naturally received Holy Sun Mi Yan's attack. Then came the sound of galloping iron hooves. At the entrance of the street, a large number of human-headed lion beasts suddenly appeared. They deformed and dragged the body of a male lion, but their heads were strangely planted on the body like pumpkins. They did not have necks and looked weird as a whole. Arbor had already seen this thing when he was looking at the sculptures in the underground village. It was the same as the harpies he saw in the Phoenix Forest. They were all invented by Tian Yun, the product of the deformed and improved medicine. What's the ranking of that cultured corpse puppet? Arbor suddenly asked. Hall Master Gong, who was concentrating on dealing with the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, was stunned. He could not help but turn to look at Arbor. What? Lord Jojo's face was full of impatience. She flew out dozens of attack talismans and threw them directly at Gong Songfeng. It's the corpse puppet that can play the zither. If Gong Songfeng wanted to dodge her attack talismans, he would definitely give the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal a heavy blow. Therefore, he could only turn around and deal with the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, allowing the attack talismans to land on his body. A burst of refreshing explosions made him recall the scene in the Red River Canyon that day. On a rainy day, the little girl had thrown him a mother-child chain explosion and a guiding lightning talisman. At that time, he had been electrocuted. It had been a sour pleasure. Compared to the dozens of talismans today, the little girl had been merciful today. What's the ranking of the cultured corpse puppets? He's not your subordinate? Arbor persisted. Today, when they attacked Devastating Island, they did not see the cultured corpse puppet. It was clear that it did not follow Hall Master Gong here. That's 16 from heaven, right? Flying to heaven. The little stoic muttered these 3 words and nodded to indicate that she understood. Mu Qingya has a backup plan, the little stoic said gravely. Based on her research and understanding of her old rival, Mu Qingya's move wouldn't be so simple. 16 was probably just here to test the waters. Mo Lian smirked. I don't care what move she has. Let her die. Originally, she was hiding in the shadows, so naturally, no one would notice her. But now she had appeared in the open. They were already on guard against a weakling without any cultivation. If they were harmed by her again, wouldn't their IQ be low? Crack, crack. The fissures on the street's surface abruptly widened under the human-headed lion beast's stomps. Arbor turned to look at the road they came from and saw thick smoke billowing as a group of neither humans nor beasts moved toward them. Chapter 4306. The bone-chilling cries of harpies also came from above. Emolien held Arbor's hand and said to everyone, "Retreat to the inner city first. Release the arrows." "Wait, release them." Fan Meng hurriedly abandoned Holy Sun Miyan, who was fighting, and flew onto the roof, grabbing the arm of a black-clothed masked man. "Vice Hall Master Meng, are you going to stop me again?" The masked man said eerily and coldly as he glanced at Fan Meng eerily. "Vice Hall Master Gui, don't you see that Hall Master Gong is also below? Are you releasing the arrows now to kill him and replace him? Nonsense." A vicious glint shot out of the masked man's eyes, and he shouted harshly, "I'm cautious and conscientious for our organization, and I don't dare to slack off in the slightest. I'm wholeheartedly working for heavenly fate without any selfish motives. Vice Hall Master Meng, on the other hand, you've always had a close relationship with that stoic face. Are you reluctant to kill him? Heh, release the arrows immediately. Release them. Don't release them." Fan Meng was instantly flustered and exasperated, and she pushed Vice Hall Master Gui fiercely. Vice Hall Master Gui staggered on the roof and furiously took out a pitch-black wood grain print from his pocket. He roared loudly, "Everyone listen to me for now. Release the lightning. Release the arrows." Fan Meng's pupils contracted, and she felt that the scene before her was about to go out of control. Sure enough, whoosh, 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 whoosh. Countless small lightning swords darted over and shot toward Arbor's group below along with the dense rain of arrows that resembled locusts passing through the forest. The members of the Phoenix clan had already set up a defensive array in the outer circle. Hundreds of swords swept away the dense rain of arrows that shot down from above, and their eyes revealed calm and fearless expressions. Arbor looked up and glared at Vice Hall Master Gui furiously. Most of the believers of heavenly fate on the roof had died from the dense explosion of godly power beads just now. However, there were truly too many people sent by heavenly fate today. After one batch died, another batch came up. There were truly too many to count. Were they determined to take down devastating City Island? If Joey City was their first stop on land, then Devastating Island would probably be their first stop on water. Arbor took a deep breath. Do the disciples of the Heavenly Fate sect want to unify the land and sea and be unparalleled in the world? He really wanted to know what the leader of their organization was thinking. After conquering the world with corpses, the world would be filled with zombies and puppets. What fun would it be for him to lead a small team? If they just wanted to prove themselves, then the price they had to pay might not be too high. As everyone brandished their arrows, they protected the little stoic and retreated backwards. The gate of the inner island was already open. Her Majesty the Queen, dressed in black tight armor, led a group of female soldiers on horseback and came forward quickly. Arbor and the others met them face to face. The Queen quickly gestured to everyone, and the team quickly split into two sides, leaving a path in the middle for them to retreat. Defend. At the Queen's command, the female soldiers in the front row quickly squatted down, took out their iron shields, and quickly formed a defensive shield formation to block the dense flying arrows. Arbor and the others retreated to the city gate and heard a chuckle. "We meet again, Arbor." Arbor couldn't help but frown when he heard that voice. He abruptly turned his head and sure enough, he saw Sikong Fuling standing there and looking at him with a smile. Unafraid of the little stoic's cold glare, Sikong Fuling tossed the small black bell in her hand with a grin. "Let's not talk about friendship. How about we make a simple transaction?" Chapter 4307. Arbor's gaze landed on Sikong Fuling's hand, and his attention was completely focused on the earthly treasure, the heavenly bell. Currently, her divine sense was shrouded by the mirror image spirit locking formation. so she couldn't communicate with Chocho normally for the time being. However, she could still vaguely sense some of Little Six's faintly discernible aura. You captured Little Six? Arbor looked at Sikong Fuling with a grim expression. This woman was dressed in a thin red muslin dress. Her lips were red, her teeth were white, and she was charming and enchanting. She was an extremely pretty girl. But why was her personality so unlikable? She had come to find trouble with her time and time again, so her patience was about to be completely exhausted. Someone who can threaten me in this world hasn't been born yet. The little stoic's wrist shook lightly, and several wooden vines that wriggled like snakes slithered out from between her fingers and directly smashed toward the earthly treasure, the heavenly bell, in Sikong Fuling's hand. As expected of the sacred wood origin, her wood spirit control was so adept. Sikong Fuling sighed ruefully, but her expression didn't change in the slightest. The deal I made with you is extremely simple. Sikong Fuling sidestepped to avoid the vines and hastily called out. And it's a convenient move for you. You only need to come with me to see my brother. Sikong Fuling suddenly stood motionless in her original spot and raised the earthly treasure, the heavenly bell, in front of Arbor. I'll return it to you. One of Arbor's vine whips landed heavily on her arm. Only a slap was heard, and a bloody wound instantly appeared on Sikong Fuling's fair arm. Her hand had originally been injured when she grabbed Arbor's vine whips. Now that the new injury had suddenly increased, the old injury split open again, and blood dripped to the ground, but she didn't bat an eyelid. Miss Sikong, why are you like this? Mu Xingchen couldn't resist sighing as he looked at the young woman in front of him, and slowly shook his head. Sikong Fuling was also a stubborn person. To a certain extent, she was also someone who would do anything to achieve her goals. Suffering a small injury was completely insignificant to her, as long as she could achieve her goal on this trip. Arbor stared coldly at the woman in front of him, and swung his vine whip at her face. Crown Princess! Meng Meiyu and the others cried out in alarm and wanted to help. However, Sikong Fuling merely calmly raised her hand and looked at Arbor as she said, If you want to vent your anger, go ahead and hit me. Just come with me after you're done. Arbor let out a cold snort. The vine whip that was about to strike her didn't fall. Instead, it shattered into bits of wood spirit star and returned to her palm. Arbor stared at Sikong Fuling with a cold and expressionless face for a long while before sneering again. You're really interesting. Sikong Fuling lowered her eyebrows and coldly said, You will know when you see him. Why am I in such a hurry to find you? Emo Lien sized her up. What's wrong? Cult Master Ding is about to die? Sikong Fuling's expression changed drastically as she turned to glare at Emo Lien. Of course not. She wasn't. Then why was she in such a hurry to follow his Jojo and insist that Jojo meet that person? Prince Emo was secretly displeased as he imagined a series of bizarre scenarios. In the end, he actually imagined a scene of Cult Master Ding sacrificing himself for a righteous cause for his Qiao Zhuanglia. He immediately thundered himself. He hurriedly transformed into a small killing Buddha and chopped away all those messy images in his mind. Big Brother is in the river of forgetfulness right now, so it doesn't conflict with where you are going. Chapter 4308. Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. After a while she said, You love him a lot? Everyone looked at their Qiao in bewilderment. Didn't this topic change feel a little strange? The Crown Prince looked down at his wife in astonishment. What was going on? There was something wrong with his wife's style. She had always been expressionless and cold. When did she start talking about such a cloying topic with someone? If she wanted to talk, shouldn't she talk to a close friend like Xian Xian? Sikong Fuling was also dumbfounded by her question. Then she flew into a rage out of humiliation. What nonsense are you talking about? Liar. Arbor sized her up with a cold face. A liar once told me that if you love someone, you have to confess to them. If you don't confess, they might not know for the rest of their lives. Although the other party might feel troubled if you confess. But if you don't confess, won't the rest of your life pass just like that? That liar even said that if you love someone, you can give up everything for them. Arbor continued to lecture expressionlessly. You don't even care about your life for Ding Yun, and you still say you don't love him. Damn liar, you're all lying to me. Arbor's cold gaze instantly sank to the bottom of an ice cave, making Sikong Fuling, who was standing opposite her, feel an inexplicable sense of suffocation. This feeling was very strange and abnormal. It was as if the girl in front of her might appear in front of you in the next second and reach out to snap your neck. Mo Lian's heart jolted, and he pulled his wife back into his embrace. He patted her fluffy head. Qiao Qiao, there's no need to mind the damn swindler's words. If you don't like damn liars, we can just kill them. Sikong Fuling still didn't know what had happened earlier, so she naturally couldn't understand that Arbor had shifted her anger onto her. They were all damn liars, but a bunch of male liars and a female liar were the same in nature. They were all liars who were here to deceive Jojo. Sikong Fuling just had a super strong premonition of danger, so she had a strong desire to live. In this world, love is one kind, and respect and love is another. I respect and love my brother. It's not what you think. I didn't lie to you. I didn't lie to you from the beginning. I was the one who caught the Hollywood fragment. I just want you to promise me one thing. After we go to the River of Forgetfulness, come with me to see my brother. It's that simple. Sikong Fuling stretched out her hand, her blood-stained fingers holding that earth treasure heavenly bell. She raised it horizontally and pushed it forward again. Although I, Sikong Fuling, am not a good person, I also disdain to deceive people. That's it. Whether you believe it or not, what I said is the truth. Xiaomu swept her an indifferent glance before abruptly extending her hand and sucking that earthly treasure, the heavenly bell, into her hand. He lifted the earth treasure heaven and earth bell and grabbed the scrambling wooden vine without any hindrance. Fragment Little Six acted as if it had seen a relative it hadn't seen in 800 years, and it scurried into her sleeve. Arbor reached out to pacify it before temporarily keeping it in his sleeve. With a flick of his hand, he tossed the earth treasure heavenly bell back into Sikong Fuling's hands. Now that I've taken Little Six back, aren't you worried that I'll go back on my word at any time? Sikong Fuling raised her brows and hung that small bell on the embroidered pouch at her waist. How can I not understand you? You're willing to suffer for your pride. You'll keep your promise no matter what and definitely won't go back on it. Chapter 4309. The little stoic glared in the direction that Sikong Fuling had turned to leave, her small face puffed up with anger. Mo Lian looked down and couldn't resist chuckling. She reached out to pinch her cheeks. Everything else aside, this person really understands you quite well. Mu Xingqian also smiled, but he couldn't resist knitting his brows when he turned around. Judging from the situation outside, the direction of Devastating Island's harbor has been blocked. It'll probably be very difficult to leave now. A large number of harpies filled the sky outside the city. Countless zombies disembarked from the two ships, and even human-headed lion beasts attacked together. The entire Devastating Island could be said to be in a precarious situation. A female official swiftly came over and saluted Arbor and the others. The Queen invites everyone to the royal palace to take shelter. Her Highness the Princess is injured? No need to worry, she's just exhausted. Female official Zhao walked over while supporting the blood-soaked Qing Xuexue. When the latter saw Arbor, she hastily asked, "Did my maidservant bring Xiaoqiao back?" Arbor took out that sliding wooden vine from his sleeve and expressionlessly nodded at her. Qing Xuexue sighed in relief. "That's great. Female official Zhao, bring them back to the palace first. Your Highness the Princess, Her Majesty the Queen has ordered for you to return to the palace with young Master Mo and the others. No, Mother's personal guards can't hold on for too long. There are too many zombies outside. I have to go help her." Female official Zhao grabbed Qing Xuexue, who couldn't even stand steadily, and said gravely, "Your Highness the Princess should properly protect yourself right now. Look at you can't even stand. So how can you help Her Majesty the Queen? If you go over, you'll only be a burden to Her Majesty." Qing Xuexue stopped talking and looked down at herself before turning to look at Arbor and the others. "Let's go." When she turned to look, the originally bustling beauty plaza was now pitted with potholes and desolation. There were dilapidated walls, ravines, and trenches everywhere. And the beauty statues were already toppled to the ground in tatters. Looking into the distance, it was also a scene of desolation. Not a single spot was intact. Qing Shueshue followed Arbor and the others back to the queen's palace with complicated emotions. She was helped to sit on the ground. Arbor took out a few bottles of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid from his storage talisman and handed them to Qing Shueshue and the others. Qing Shueshue looked up and nodded at her. "Thank you." Arbor turned to look at her husband. "How long will the mirror image sealing array set up by the ancient bronze mirror seal our consciousness?" Compared to her husband was more knowledgeable in array formations, so he should be able to see through the mystery behind it. As expected, Emolian didn't disappoint his wife. "Jojo, don't worry. It won't last long. Besides, we're already out of the range of the great god sealing spell. It should be undone in about an hour." Only then did Xiaomu relax. After getting used to being tricked in the top academies, Lord Jojo developed a small habit. He liked to carry a small bag on his back when he went out on adventures. He also liked to stuff storage talismans in his waist, sleeves, and embroidered pouches. The storage talismans contained all kinds of weapons, hidden weapons, talismans, and pills. They were used to prevent the situation where one's consciousness was sealed and one's inner world and star region couldn't be opened, so they could be used at any time. Therefore, after being tricked so many times, there would always be some improvement. "Your Highness the Princess!" A few maids rushed over and yelled, covered in blood. Tushan family is rebelling, and quite a few cultivation families under their control are rebelling as well. "What?" Qing Shueshue opened her eyes, a trace of anger flashing through them. Chapter 43:10. How can this be? Qing Shueshue's breathing instantly became a little chaotic. It was really chaotic. When the corpse puppets attacked, although they were frightened, at least their hearts weren't panicked. But now, even the largest Tushan family on Devastating Island had rebelled. What chance did they have to win against Tianyan? The young master Songfeng beside you is the hall master of Tianyun's underground hall, Gong Songfeng. Arbor threw another shocking news to Qing Shueshue, which stunned the latter and made her unable to come back to her senses. Young Master Songfeng? Qing Shueshue couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. Was it that elegant young master who stood tall like bamboo and seemed to be born without a temper? That person actually didn't have much of a presence. When he followed behind her all day, he didn't speak much. Qing Shueshue was having fun and completely forgot about this person. Just like when she was strolling on the street with Xiao in her arms, that man followed beside her indifferently. After a long time, she left him behind. If Arbor didn't deliberately mention it now, she wouldn't have remembered this young master. Actually, no one knew that Qing Shueshue was a little androphobic. As the first successor of Devastating Female Kingdom, she actually panicked when she saw men. Naturally, this kind of thing couldn't be known by the whole world. Her Majesty the Queen seemed to have heard about this matter, but she only thought that Qing Shueshue was still childish and immature. Anyway, the time had come. After this princess inherited the throne, she would definitely expand the kingdom. Arbor didn't care about how surprised Qing Shueshue was and continued to say faintly, "This Hall Master Gong has already brought people to infiltrate your devastating island and dealt with your Tushan family. After some coercion and bribery, your Tushan family suddenly rebelled. Is it hard to guess? The conditions offered by Tianyan must be very tempting." Emolian nodded and said. Qing Shueshue clenched her fists tightly and said in a deep voice with reddened eyes, "So what if it's tempting? When some things are settled, they will no longer have any value. It's unknown whether these people will live or die." "That's true." Mu Xingchen couldn't help but sigh. The disciples of Tianyan can betray and bite others at any time. After all, they needed an endless stream of fresh people to expand their corpse puppet warehouse. How could they create a world of peace for others? Arbor glanced at Qing Shueshue. "What do you plan to do now?" "Her Majesty the Queen. Her Majesty the Queen is here. Your Majesty the Queen." The group of maids cried out excitedly. Qingyi came to her daughter's side and hugged her tightly. Child, go with Qiao Qiao and the others. Mother. Minister he, take the children through the secret passage. The queen turned to look at the middle-aged woman with a calm expression. Luan nodded and said, Your Majesty, please take care of yourself. Qing's mother's mother had a little mother Bi's mother B had been had a shue t her's mother's had. Qing's Her Majesty patted her shoulder and smiled faintly. As the queen, mother has her own mission. Even if devastating island is about to perish, mother still has to live and die with her people. Qing Shueshua cried out anxiously. Beside her, Maid Zhao's movements were very nimble. She slapped the princess unconscious. Chapter 43:11. Arbor expressionlessly reached out to support Qing Shueshua, who was falling towards his side. He looked up at the queen. Let's go together. I can do my best. Qingyi shook her head and interrupted Arbor. Good child, take Shueshua and her 300 personal guards and leave together. Let Aunt Yi take care of the rest. Mu Xingchen frowned and disagreed. Your Majesty, if you stay, you'll only be making some unnecessary sacrifices. Why don't you listen to Jojo? And take as many people as possible. Let's all leave together. Qingyi smiled amiably at them and shook her head again. If everyone leaves together, who will stay behind to stop Tianyun's people? Aunt Yi promises you. I'll definitely do my best to protect myself and more people. Even if this devastating island is completely destroyed, I definitely won't let it remain as Tianyun's base. Pass down my order, take them with you. Immediately. Qingyi flung her sleeves and quickly turned around, not looking at Arbor and the others anymore. Come back. Arbor angrily roared as he supported Qing Shueshua. Emolian reached out and grabbed her small hand. Jojo, let her go. There are still so many subjects left on this island. As the queen, it is impossible for her to leave these people behind and leave alone. Long Shangyun said with a cold face. That's right. Queen Qingyi is a famous war goddess in and out of Wangchuan. She'll be fine. We should immediately take Qing Shueshua and leave this place. Long she looked at Arbor with a complicated expression. This cousin was cold-hearted and heartless. What she was showing now was not the case. But wasn't she just a simple and adorable little cousin? But she definitely wasn't. At least in front of him and his sister, this little girl was like a devil. There are at least 30,000 people on Devastating Island. We can't take them all at once. How do you know it's impossible? Arbor retorted unhappily. Yes, even if cousin's sister can use the storage talisman to take them away. But now it's chaotic outside. Those islanders are hiding everywhere. Are you going to find them one by one? Long Huan asked with a serious face. Arbor knew that it was impossible. She was just annoyed and couldn't help but want to scold him. Alright, that's enough. Mu Xingchen grumpily stopped Long Huan before turning to say to Qiao Qiao. Qiao Qiao, young Master Long's words aren't without reason. How about we leave this place with Serhi first? We have to get far away from this mirror image god-locking matrix and return after our divine conscious recovers. Qiao Mu nodded and looked at He Luan, who was standing on the side. Everyone this way please. He Luan immediately understood and led everyone to a secret passage in the palace without saying a word. This secret passageway was built under the queen's bedchamber, and it was connected to a water vein. After walking out of the passageway, they saw a white beach, and the clear sea water was already rippling under their feet. A large cargo ship was parked not far from the shore. There were 2 cargo cabins on both sides, and a flat deck in the middle. There were 4 to 5 spirit stone cannons on the side of the ship's railing. It seemed that the queen had prepared them for them. Let's go. He Luan turned and nodded at Arbor and the others. Then, she leaped toward the bow of the ship. Arbor and Molien, and the others led 100 Phoenix brothers and Qing Shueshua's 300 personal guards, and jumped onto the ship. In the sky not far away, the harpy's furious roars could be heard. Chapter 43:12. Everyone looked up and saw a large group of harpies rushing towards them from the direction of the dock. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, and Holy Sun Mi Yin flew to Arbor's side, at an extremely fast speed. They've discovered us. We have to leave quickly. Those things with human heads and lion bodies can't come over. Once they enter the water, they can only attack us by flying. If they were only dealing with these harpies with low attack power, it wouldn't matter even if their divine senses were temporarily locked. The situation was urgent, but Heluan didn't lose her composure. She ordered coldly, "Raise the anchor immediately. Let's go." The large ship responded by raising the anchor and immediately set off, heading towards the vast water area ahead. Arbor took out hundreds of bows and arrows from his storage talisman, and threw them to the phoenixes and Qing Shueshue's 300 personal guards. He leaped onto the ship's bow first, and released a black gold arrow as a demonstration. He said with a cold expression, "Shoot between the eyebrows. There's a mutated black crystal here." As the arrow flew, it made a sound as it pierced through the air. Everyone had different expressions as they watched the little crown princess shoot the harpies flying at the front into the water with one arrow, creating a huge splash. The phoenixes almost exclaimed out loud. Arbor turned his head and glanced at them. Only then did they give up. "Who's sneaking around?" Arbor turned his head, and saw that Qing Shueshue had slowly woken up. The female attendant's scolding came from the opposite cargo hold. Not long after, they saw a woman in revealing clothes. Her arms were twisted, and she was pushed and shoved in front of everyone. Xiaomu gracefully landed on the deck, and cast a sidelong glance at that woman. "Hongsa, why are you here?" Qing Shueshue was slightly startled. Qing Hongsa glared at Qing Shueshue with anger in her eyes. She scolded like a cannonball. "Of course you don't want to see me here. If I wasn't smart enough to sneak here early, I would still be on beautiful City Island. My neck might have been slit by now." "How can that be?" Qing Shueshue muttered. Qing Hongsa jumped up as if she was stung by a wasp. She roared angrily, "Mother is so biased. In the face of imminent disaster, only you are allowed to leave. They are both her biological daughters. How can she favor one and discriminate against the other?" Fortunately, she was quick-witted and managed to slip away a step earlier. Unfortunately, her other sisters were probably already dead by now. "Hongse, your maternal grandfather's family has colluded with the All-Seer clan and rebelled." Of course, Qing Hong knew that Tishan family was rebelling. Because of this, she wanted to run even more. Who knew if Tishan family would sell her out after they joined the Sky Fortune family? How many times had Tishan family betrayed their masters for glory? She was just a granddaughter. In the face of the entire family's interests, she was nothing. "It's Princess Hongsa." Heluan raised her hand and ordered her men to release her. Qing Hongsa clutched her arm that was almost broken. Her gaze casually swept over Mo Lian, He Chun, and the others. Her tone was incomparably sour as she said, "Heh, mother is really good to you. Even while fleeing, she didn't forget to give you some beautiful men to accompany you." As if thinking of the 18 beautiful men that the queen had bestowed upon Qing Shueshue, a trace of indignation flashed across Qing Hongsa's face. Favoring one and discriminating against the other was extremely biased. Qing Shueshue was speechless. She glanced apologetically at Arbor and said, "This is my third sister, Qing Hongsa. Sister Qiao, please don't take offense. Hey look, isn't beautiful City Island sinking?" Chapter 43:13. Qingcheng Island is indeed sinking. When Xiaomu turned around to look, she saw the scene of an imminent disaster. The entire devastating island was sinking into the sea. The lush green island was disappearing bit by bit in front of everyone. Qing Shueshue and the 300 personal guards were naturally dumbfounded. They dashed to the second layer of the fence, as if they had gone mad. They stretched out their hands towards the distant beautiful island. "Mother! Mother! How can Mother be so decisive?" Auntie Yi said that even if the entire island disappears, she will not let this place become Tianyun's base. So this is what she means. Arbor looks at the sinking Qingcheng Island and feels his head is in pain. It was really unexpected that things would suddenly turn out this way. At first there should be a better way to take Qing Yi and everyone away, but now... Ha ha ha! Do you see it? Do you see it? King Honks pointed at the sunken island in the distance and angrily yelled, "That's my good mother, my good mother." The time she sent Qing Shuai away, she didn't care about her life. If it's not because she is smart enough to run away, this time she will sink with everyone on Qingcheng Island. Perhaps only Qing Shuai's life is important, and hers is not? At this time, Xiao Mu was suffering from a headache, so when she heard this woman yelling beside her, she was instantly enraged. With a wave of her hand, 2 Phoenix clan members immediately ran forward and tied up the screaming Qing Hongsa. They even thoughtfully stuffed a piece of cloth into her mouth to gag her. Woo! Woo woo! Woo! King Honks glared at Xiao Mu and the others with accusation in her eyes. How can this woman be so excessive? She is just telling the truth. Why don't they give her a chance to talk? Big Sister Qiao. Qing Shuai stood up with the help of someone. She turned to look at her third sister. Noisy. Xiao Mu waved her hand again, and the 2 Phoenix clansmen dragged Qing Hongsa into the cargo hold. They directly tossed her inside and closed the hatch with a clatter. That was it. At this moment, everyone was busy dealing with a group of harpies flying over their heads. No one had the time to listen to Qing Hongsa's nonsense. The speed of the ship was not slow, but the harpies' flying speed seemed to be faster. Qing Shuai's 300 bodyguards stood at the bow of the ship and continuously shot arrows. Indeed, many of the harpies were shot. However, after less than an hour, although the number of harpies had decreased, everyone was panting due to the excessive consumption of spiritual energy. It was naturally inappropriate for this to continue. Arbor narrowed his eyes and took out some spirit-restoring medicinal liquid from the storage talisman and distributed it to everyone. Use the spirit stone cannon. Arbor walked towards the stairs on the other side of the ship. He glanced coldly at the harpies in the sky who were quickly surrounding them. The members of the Phoenix clan hurriedly gathered. There were several spirit stone cannons placed in front of the fence, which were perfect for shooting at these reckless harpies. Following a series of clattering sounds, the little stoic poured out a lot of spirit stones from a storage talisman. The several members of the Phoenix clan, standing in front of the spirit stone cannons, were startled at first, and then prepared to place the spirit stones on the cannons. However, after the spirit stones inside the storage talisman were piled up with a clattering sound, everyone's expressions gradually turned to astonishment. She still hasn't finished pouring them out? How many spirit stones were stored inside Lady Holy Daughter's storage talisman? After the Wind clan members were stunned for a moment, they hastily formed groups of 3 to 5 and surrounded a spirit stone cannon. Chapter 43:14. With the addition of the spirit stone cannons, and the princess's personal guards drinking the medicinal liquid to replenish their spiritual energy, their morale increased greatly. A large group of harpies were hit by the spirit stone cannons and fell into the water, making splashing sounds. Arbor stared coldly at the things that fell into the water, unable to hide the gloominess in her heart. If these things fell into the water, they would definitely pollute the water source. Although she had already scattered some antidotes to avoid the corpse poison, it could only be said to have a certain effect. Once these corpses that sank into the water were eaten by the fishes, it would definitely cause a large number of fish to mutate in the future. As for whether these little things would turn into corpses or develop in a better direction, this was unknown. After about half an hour, the ship gradually moved further away. Suddenly, a short whistle came from the direction of Devastating Island. Hundreds and thousands of harpies flapped their wings and stopped in the air, no longer pursuing them. They turned around and headed in the direction of Devastating Island. Divine sense can be used, Emolian muttered, then released her divine sense to explore Devastating Island that was slowly sinking into the water. After a great battle, Devastating Island was almost completely submerged in the water. Only a faint light gold could be seen on the surface of the sea, rippling slowly in the water. It was like the light of the sea revealing a trace of gentleness in the dusk. But Qing Shuai was very clear. It was the top of the palace's pagoda, emitting the last trace of light. When the sky darkened, and the last ray of light was replaced by the spreading darkness of the night. The surface of the water finally quieted down. The princess's 300 personal guards walked down the stairs tiredly, each finding a place to sit down and rest. 1/3 of the spirit stones had been used, and there was still a large pile left in front of the spirit stone cannons. On the other hand, Long Shengyun cast a complicated glance at Xiao Mu. This cousin of hers had a very strange temperament. She was obviously a super rich person who could casually grab a handful of spirit stones and pile them up into a mountain. Previously, she wanted to scam the two of them, and she was simply too happy to do so. Long Huan was also speechless and looked at Arbor, who was standing at the bow of the ship. The latter was lowering his head to check the extent of damage to the spirit stone cannons, and did not notice the sneaky glances behind him. When Long Huan thought of the large ship he had bought previously, he could not help but feel a headache coming on. He had almost taken out all the money he had on him to buy that ship. However, a few days later, it was smashed into pieces at the port of Qingqing Island, and there was no way to repair it. How could this be described as a trap? If he had known that this ship would be scrapped at the port of Qingqing Island, he would not have bought it. He would have rented his cousin's Scarlet Firmament Blue Waves for a few days. Thinking of this, Long Huan rolled his eyes a few times. In his heart, there was a turbid air that could not be released for a long time. Since he brought his cousin home, Long Qian felt that he had never had a smooth journey. Hui Hui felt extremely uncomfortable holding her breath. Speaking of which, this cousin of his was probably the natural nemesis of the Forgotten River Dragon clan? Otherwise, how could he be able to completely suppress the siblings every time? What is she doing? Long Shengyun raised her head and looked at Arbor, who was standing in front of the fence on the second floor. She couldn't help but frown. Long Qi looked over again. He saw that expressionless little girl standing in front of the fence, her sleeves fluttering, and her white hands brushing back and forth. Pieces of white medicinal powder rustled and fell into the sea. Chapter 43:15. It seems to be purifying the waters here. Long Huan sighed heavily after looking for a while. Will this medicine work? Long Shengyun asked hesitantly. It's better than doing nothing. Long Shengyun pursed her lips, and her gaze swept back and forth over Arbor's back. That's true. Her Highness the Royal Highness. Long Huan's gaze landed on Qing Xuexue. He still remembered the first time they met. That Royal Highness had a mischievous smile as she blended into the crowd, and said to his stoic cousin, "Since you flirted with someone else's big brother, you have to take responsibility, right? You mustn't flirt and deny it." At that time, that smiling face that wished for the world to be plunged into chaos was simply a world of difference from the silent aura she currently exuded. It had only been 2 days. The ruthlessness of the Heavenly Fate Empire was evident from this. Once it made a move and launched an attack on its target, perhaps no patrician family would be able to handle it alone. Unwittingly, this Heavenly Fate Empire seemed to have grown to an unattainable level. No one could remain unscathed in this kind of chaotic world. Qing Xuexue didn't know how long she had been standing next to the railing. After nightfall, everything in the surroundings, including the air, seemed to have stopped flowing. In the depths of her eyes, there was only that silent island in the distance. She didn't know what kind of power could make the entire devastating women's kingdom sink to the bottom of the water. She also didn't know how she should proceed on her future path. Before her eyes was a sea of confusion, frustration, and melancholy. The several Phoenix clansmen who rode flying spirit beasts to investigate devastating island quietly returned and landed next to Arbor. After the little stoic finished patting the last bit of medicinal powder on her hand, she turned to look at them, inquiring with her eyes. One of the Phoenix clansmen immediately cupped his hands respectfully and said, "Lady Saintess, the Heavenly Fate Empire's people have already withdrawn from that sunken island." The Heavenly Fate Empire naturally had to withdraw since the island had sunk. Otherwise, would it be planted in the middle of the water? We dove into the water and dived several dozen kilometers, but we didn't find any clues. The entire devastating island seemed to have sunk several thousand kilometers into the bottom of the sea along with its people, and they couldn't find any traces at all. We didn't find anyone alive. Qing Shueshua's fingers gripped the railing of the boat tightly. She raised her head slightly, and 2 lines of tears fell silently. She knew that crying was useless at a time like this, but she still couldn't stop her tears. She just couldn't stop them. Arbor raised his hand and patted her shoulder. His voice was calm as he said, "Think positively. Perhaps there is a teleportation array under the water. Perhaps Her Majesty has already escaped with some people." Really? Qing Shueshua's back stiffened as she stood there. A wisp of moonlight fell on her hair, faintly illuminating a touch of warm snow. "Although I haven't spent much time with your mother, I feel that Her Majesty isn't someone who would make promises easily. Since she said that she would do her best to protect herself and more people, I believe that she will be able to do it." Qing Shueshua turned her head slightly. Her line of sight came into contact with that pair of cold and bright eyes. She was absent-minded for a moment. Then, she nodded heavily and said in a muffled voice, "Mother will be fine." Perhaps it was as Sister Qiao said. Mother was doing her best to protect these subjects of hers as much as possible. She had to have faith in Mother. Chapter 43:16. Perhaps they really did escape through the transportation formation. That wasn't impossible. Sister Qiao, don't worry. Qing Shueshua turned to look resolutely at Arbor and said, "I won't wallow in self-pity or feel melancholy. I will become even more spirited and strong. When I meet Mother and my clansmen again, I will prove to them that I can also be a responsible royal daughter. When danger comes again, I can take over Mother's sword without hesitation and protect my people in her place." The little stoic expressionlessly curled her lips. Heilwan, who was standing far below the ship's mast, couldn't help but reveal a gratified smile. Perhaps this crisis wasn't a bad thing after all. The royal daughter seemed to have grown up overnight. Long Shangyun looked up at the 2 people for a moment, before turning around to see her elder brother looking at her strangely. "What's wrong?" Long Qian felt that his younger sister had been paying too much attention to the stoic face recently. She could stand here and watch the little stoic and the royal daughter talk for so long. If this was any other time, his younger sister would have been impatient to the extreme by now. The 2 people were talking in front of the railing on the 2nd floor. Their voices were so low that he could only vaguely hear the lingering echoes of their conversation traveling with the wind. Just like this, his younger sister could stand here for a long time and watch in a daze. It was simply baffling. "I want to ask you what's wrong." Long Qian couldn't resist sizing her up. "Nothing." Long Shangyun harumphed and turned to leave without looking back. "I just realized that the stoic face isn't as annoying as I imagined." Long Qian was startled. He looked at his younger sister's back and chuckled helplessly after a while. "But that's all." Long Shangyun waved her hand and harumphed again before walking briskly toward the cargo hold. Time to sleep. It was almost daybreak after a night of torment. Seriously, she was exhausted to death. Crash. As soon as she pulled open the cargo hold door, she saw something fall in front of her with a bang. Long Shangyun hastily dodged backward, avoiding the thing that was thrown at her. She couldn't help but be amused when she focused her eyes. It turned out that Qing Hongsa saw someone open the door and swiftly pounced at her. She dodged and naturally fell flat on her back. "What are you doing?" Long Shangyun angrily roared. "Woo woo woo. Woo." Qing Hongsa was flustered and exasperated, her face flushed red. Long Shangyun rolled her eyes. She raised her hand and summoned a long sword from her consciousness. As the sword light flashed, it lifted the cloth in Qing Hongsa's mouth, scaring the latter into letting out an ear-piercing scream. Let me go, let me go." "I can't do that." Long Shangyun shrugged and glanced at her. Qing Hongsa's hands and feet were wrapped in vines that were as thick as bowls. She had no ability to break through the layers of pure wood spirit energy. This was the masterpiece of young Master Feng Zhangfei. "If you have nothing to do, then go out. Don't disturb my sleep." Long Shangyun impatiently threw Qing Hongsa out of the cabin and closed the door to rest. Qing Hongsa was so angry that her entire body trembled. When Qing Shueshue saw this, she hastily jumped down and landed in front of Qing Hongsa. She turned to look at the little stoic. Sister Qiao, release my third sister first. Third sister, don't make a fuss. It's fine now. Arbor glanced at Qing Hongsa. The wood spirit energy between his fingers moved slightly, and the 9 layers of wood spirit energy enveloping Qing Hongsa obediently dissipated. Chapter 43:17. It then drifted to Arbor's fingers. Qing Shueshue was a bit stupefied. This was her first time seeing someone control the wood spirit so purely. To be able to extract someone else's 9th level wood spirit so quickly, it was as if all the wood spirit energy in the world that could be manipulated could be used by her. Looking at the specks of wood spirit energy floating between her smooth and jade-like fingers, it was as if they were little fairies dancing in the wind under the cover of the night. Qing Hongsa was also dumbfounded. She then grumpily jumped up and pointed at Qing Shueshue as she angrily said, "Don't think I'll appreciate your kindness if you put in a good word for me. Third sister, the entire devastating island has sunk. What nonsense are you spouting?" Qing Hongsa angrily glared at him, before widening her eyes in astonishment. She hastily rushed to the second deck and looked into the distance in shock. "Our home has completely sunk to the bottom of the sea." Arbor turned around and squinted tiredly. She then saw her peerlessly graceful husband standing in the shadow of the ship's mast with a small bowl in one hand. He was tall and slender, and his phoenix eyes glinted faintly as he smiled faintly at her. At this moment, it was as if all the fatigue and discomfort in her body had been swept away, and the little stoic hastily ran over to him. "After fighting for so long, you only drank a bowl of tofu pudding midway. I guess that you must be hungry. Go rest after eating the congee. Leave the rest to hubby." Arbor reached out to take the bowl and stirred the warm corn congee with a spoon. She raised her head and curved her eyes at him. "Ayaya, you two are slacking off here again." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's figure drifted to their side. He reached out to grab the small bowl in Arbor's hand. "This venerable one wants to see what this is." Mo Lian expressionlessly extended an arm to block that person's restless claws. "It's for wifey. You don't have a share." "Jojo." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked pitifully at the little lady and winked at her aggrievedly. Mo Lian didn't give him a chance to continue fooling around. She directly grabbed his hand and dragged him away. "Get to work. My life is so miserable. Jojo, the Crown Prince has enslaved me." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal wailed as he was dragged 3 steps away. Arbor had just eaten a mouthful of corn porridge when he saw the guy looking back at him with an aggrieved expression. He couldn't help but chuckle. Mo Lian hastily turned her head and saw the little stoic standing in the pitch-black night. A speck of moonlight illuminated her almond-shaped eyes that were as clear as water. She smiled sweetly. Her eyes were curved and gentle, as if there was endless starlight in them. It was so beautiful that it could steal the good fortune of heaven and earth. The Crown Prince was stunned. He unconsciously let go of the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's hand. Ji Chen's brows slightly flashed, and he let out a faint laugh. He turned his head and took the opportunity to punch Prince Mo's head, laughing heartily as he dragged him away. "What are you waiting for?" Mo Lian came back to her senses. She rubbed her head with one hand and couldn't help but kick him. Sneak attacking someone when they're unprepared is not what a hero should do. "Jojo, Mo Lian kicked me. Is there anything else you can do other than complain?" "I can't." "Can the two of you stop fighting? Let's set up the defensive barrier first," Holy Sun Mi Yin said helplessly. "Although this place looks calm and peaceful, there might be dangers lurking in every corner under the sea." Holy Sun Mi Yin continued to persuade. "Set up the defensive barrier first before you go fight elsewhere." Light and shadow flickered on the ship. Everyone looked up in unison and saw a transparent layer of watercolored defensive barrier slowly covering the ship before slowly descending. Chapter 43:18. Only the person sitting there could hear the wretched screams that came from the depths of the soul. But if an outsider could hear these screams right now, they would definitely find it incomparably tragic. This unfilial descendant. A faintly discernible phantom trembled as he curled up beside the table. He shouted shakily, You humiliate your own ancestor like this. Aren't you afraid of heavenly Tao's annihilation? Aren't you worried that you'll be struck by lightning? His peach blossom eyes flashed with a cold glint as he looked up, and a severe glint flickered through his eyes. The silvery white flames cast on the old man's body gradually burned fiercely, completely enveloping the phantom in flames and roasting it. Don't burn. I don't dare to have thoughts of seizing another's nest, really. Brat. You burning me to death won't benefit you at all. You can't control such a powerful devil emperor bloodline. Don't burn. I'm telling you, I can help you. Help you summon the devil emperor sword. Duan Yu's hand paused, and the clusters of silvery white flames that ignited also swayed slightly. The devil emperor's sword. That old man's body drooped as he curled up into a ball. His eyes contained an inexplicable fear, as he looked hesitantly at Duan Yu. The ancient devil emperor's sword. After summoning the devil emperor's sword, not only will one's cultivation improve by leaps and bounds. Moreover, legend has it that the one who obtains the devil emperor's sword can unify the 3 prefectures in the sea. You'll become the incomparably honorable strongest person in this world. Duan Yu couldn't help but scoff, and the flames in his hand suddenly increased in intensity, burning the old man until he screamed. Don't burn, woo. You old man, you're so oily and slick. Do you think I'll believe your words? Unify the 3 prefectures in the sea? Why don't you say you can control the holy realm and command all living things in the world? Do you think I'll believe you when you make it sound so miraculous? You better believe me. The old man waved his transparent palm and raised his head shakily. There are many things in this world that you don't know. Junior, do you want to accept my guidance? Duan Yu's chilling gaze landed on him, and a sneer surfaced on his lips. Old man, if I burn you for another half a month, your soul will probably scatter. Disobedient. The old man was so angry that his beard trembled, and his entire body trembled. You've been dead for so many years, yet you still miss the mortal world? Wouldn't it be better for you to just disappear? You. The old man was exasperated. What do you know? Duan Yu scoffed and slowly stood up. He coldly stated, I indeed don't understand. An old man who had passed away from ancient times came out to cause trouble. He wanted to possess the body of a junior. If this wasn't a demon, then what was he? Which ancestor could do something so selfish and disregard for ethics? After putting away that half-dead old crook, Duan Yu walked to the door. Just as he reached out to open the door, he saw someone rashly barging in and almost bumping into him. Duan Yu's expression darkened, and he dodged to the side. He retreated 3 steps and flicked his sleeves as he coldly looked at a royal guard dressed in men's clothing who barged in. That fool must have stuck her ear to the door to listen. She barged in as soon as he pulled the door open. Your Majesty. Wu Ruomei coughed awkwardly and hastily knelt down in a well-behaved salute. Someone come. Duan Yu ordered expressionlessly. Chapter 43:19. Wu Ruomei hastily pushed down the hat that didn't fit her head and shouted repeatedly, Don't, I'll go out by myself. As she retreated, she accidentally bumped the back of her head against the door frame. She instantly scrunched up her face on the verge of tears. Duan Yu ignored her, and was about to step out when he felt that Wu Ruomei was an eyesore blocking the door. Someone, escort Miss Wu back to the estate. Don't. Wu Ruomei quickly put on a bitter face and muttered softly, Your Majesty, there's a rebellion at Liu Pass and evil bandits are on the loose. Someone has already gone to handle this matter. Duan Yu glanced at her indifferently. Do you know that your father was looking for you everywhere inside and outside the city yesterday? Wu Ruomei pursed her lips and said, Of course I know. He wants me to go meet that damn wastrel. I won't go. The junior eunuch on the side silently lowered his eyes and speechlessly asked the heavens. So eldest Miss Wu, you hid in the palace overnight just to hide from your father? Go inform Prime Minister Wu. Duan Yu ordered expressionlessly. Xiao Kezi lowered his head and whispered. Reporting to your majesty, this servant has already sent someone to inform the Prime Minister estate. Wu Ruomei angrily glared at Xiao Kezi before kneeling in front of Duan Yu with a plop. She exclaimed in a pretentious manner, Your Majesty, Commandery Princess Wushuang of the Divine Province, has formed the Tiger Wolf Battalion and led the female soldiers in red. They are invincible on the battlefield and emerge victorious in every battle, causing a bunch of old men to be terror-stricken and piss their pants in terror. Duan Yu continued to look at her expressionlessly. Xiao Kezi twitched his mouth. Wu Ruomei spoke with conviction. Ruomei can also do it. Build an invincible and undefeatable female army for our great Song province. Ruomei wants to go to Liu Pass. Ruomei wants to fight bandits. Ruomei wants to expel all the bastards who trample on our great Song province's territory. Duan Yu glanced at her and said indifferently, Commandery Princess Wushuang of the Divine Province was at level 7 Divine Realm half a year ago. You break through to the Divine Realm first before discussing this matter. As if struck by lightning, Wu Ruomei's face instantly crumbled. Your Majesty, Left Prime Minister Wu Yong requests an audience. Wu Ruomei's small face fell even more, her eyes revealing the intention to run away. Let them in. A series of hurried footsteps approached from afar. Left Prime Minister Wu Yong hurriedly trotted over. Greetings, Your Majesty. Duan Yu's lips curled as he looked at this chubby old man who was panting heavily. Take him away. Yes. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wu Yong glared fiercely at Wu Ruomei. If it weren't for the presence of others, he would have rushed forward and kicked his daughter. What a troublemaker. She was always causing trouble for her father. Ever since she was young, her unrealistic dream of being a heroine should have ended long ago. I really don't know what's going on in his head. He wants to be a hero all day long, and wants to go to the battlefield. This is simply a little crazy. Go back with father. I'm not going back. Wu Ruomei hurriedly pounced over and grabbed the door. She looked at her father guardedly and said, I won't go meet that damn wastrel. The veins on Wu Yong's forehead throbbed as he glared at this daughter, who was willfully causing trouble in the palace. He wished for nothing more than to kick this idiot to death. If it weren't for His Majesty's good temper, how could he tolerate her until now? I'd rather stay by His Majesty's side and continue to be a mid-court guard than go meet that damn wastrel. Prime Minister Wu was angered into laughter. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.